Good evening and welcome to tonight's City Council meeting. I'm Mayor Pro Tem Jean Lim. Mayor Castriota is attending remotely while she's at a mayor's conference, and so I will be chairing the meeting. Information on how to watch, attend, and participate, as well as agendas, minutes, and recordings can be found on Broomfield's website at broomfield.org/council meetings. Public comment is welcome, in person or through our call-in service. Instructions for calling in are available on the council meeting webpage. Public comment will be limited to 90 minutes total per item. The first 1 to 15 participants in the queue have 3 minutes to speak. The next 16 to 25 participants in the queue have 2 minutes to speak. If time remains, the next 26 plus participants in the queue have 1 minute to speak. For our hard of hearing residents present, we have wireless headsets available through our AV team in the back of the council chambers. The City Council regular meeting is called to order. There are 9 council members in attendance. A quorum of the council is present. We begin this meeting by acknowledging that we gather on the ancestral and unceded lands of the Arapaho, Cheyenne, Ute, and other Native peoples. Indigenous peoples have cared for this land for generations and continue to maintain deep cultural and spiritual ties to it. As the City and County of Broomfield, we recognize the responsibility to honor this legacy and the enduring presence of Native communities. May this acknowledgement inspire action that fosters greater understanding, truth, and respect for Indigenous peoples. Will everyone please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? Flag of the United States of America, this republic for which it stands. In an effort to keep order for tonight's meeting, I ask council members to limit their comments to 5 minutes. If council members are given an opportunity to speak for a second time on an item, they should limit their comments to 2 minutes. We will plan a 10-minute break at approximately 8 p.m. We will begin with council's review and approval of this evening's agenda. Council may add or remove items from the consent agenda, or council may revise the order of business for the meeting. Does any member of council have any comments or questions regarding this evening's agenda? Are there any objections to this agenda being approved? Seeing none, this agenda is approved. In the section on petitions and communications this evening, we have the honor of some special guests with us. From Broomfield High School, please welcome the Broomfield High School gymnastics team, who recently took home their 5th 5A state championship title. Will the Broomfield High School team representatives please come to the podium and introduce yourselves?
Gymnastics, and I'm here with gymnasts and family members from the 2025 gymnastics team.
Thank you very much for joining us this evening. Would anyone else here present like to make a comment? Any team members or anything? No? Okay. Well, thank you. We'll now move to public comments on this item. If there's anyone who would like to be heard to congratulate the team, please come to the podium and state your name and neighborhood for the record. For anyone using the call-in service, please press *9 to indicate your desire to speak on this item. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Do we have anyone who'd like to make a comment? No? Comments from council are next. Are there any comments? Councilmember Hinkle.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you so much for being here tonight. I am so excited to have the gymnastics team here. Coach, would you like to say anything about your girls tonight and their win? You know, it's exciting to hear about them, and tell us a little bit about the team and what it took to get there.
Absolutely. I first just want to thank you all for having us here. It's an honor to be here and to be celebrated by you all. I think I can speak for all of us when we say that it is an honor, and we are extremely proud to represent Broomfield when we are on the gymnastics floor competing. I have to say, I'm extremely proud of these girls myself. We had quite this season, and we started off with one of our best seasons that we've already ever started off with. And I can speak to my captains and their leadership throughout this season. They really guided the team on how to become one and walk as one. And so we kind of carried that motto throughout the whole season. And it ended with a state title, which was the ultimate goal. And so I couldn't be more proud of them.
Great. Thank you so much for being here tonight. And parents, I'm sure you're in the audience too. I'm an athlete mom myself of two athletes. One's in college playing sports and another one's about to. And I just know how much work it takes as parents. You have been the transportation up until you're around age 16. And then now you're the worried transportation. And so parents, we know that you put in a lot of effort and work too. So kids tonight, just make sure, you give your family a thanks and your coach a thanks. And we are just really looking forward to hearing more about the team as time goes on too. Are your captains here?
They are.
Okay. Do you guys mind introducing yourselves? You don't have to say anything other than your name. Is that okay?
Come on, you can do it.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Miata Santos. Hi, I'm Liliana Willian.
Great, thank you. And who got second and third place at state? Do you guys remember?
Chatfield got second and Mountain Range got third.
Oh, nice. Yeah, always hear that Mountain Range is actually one of the top competitors. Am I right? So great. Well, thank you so much for being here. We are so proud of you, and we know that you guys are likely leaders in your schools too, and likely good student athletes as well. So thank you so much for being here, and congratulations.
We would like to extend congratulations to the team, their coaches, and all the supporters for an outstanding season. On behalf of Broomfield City Council and the entire community, thank you for being here tonight. Your dedication, teamwork, and passion for the sport have truly inspired all of us, and we are proud of the energy and pride that you have brought to Broomfield. Thank you. Would you please join us in front of the dais for a photo? Public Works, please come to the podium for your presentation. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, City Council members, and city leadership. I am happy to introduce Jesse Alberts, our Superintendent of Streets, who will announce the final 20 names that were put forth for our snowplow naming competition. I think there was close to 500 submissions, and I will say, being relatively new in Broomfield here, we have a very, very creative community. So with that, Jesse.
Good evening. I'm Jesse Alberts. I'm the street superintendent for Public Works, as Barney said. And yep, I'm here to first off thank the public for submitting just under 500 names. We had a pretty huge turnout on that. And what we did then after we got those 500 names is we had council narrow it down to 48 names. So thank you to council for that. After those 48 names were decided, we had staff vote on those 48 names to the top 20. And then we brought that here tonight. And we are now asking the residents to vote the top 20 down to 10. Communications will open that up for voting tomorrow, and it will close on February 12th at 5 p.m. On March 2nd, we will then put the names on the trucks and take photos. And March 9th, we will submit the winning names via the community update. I can now share the names of all 20 if you would like. All right, so the Big Leplowski, Control Salt Delete, Scoop Dog, Snow-B-Wan Kenobi, Darth Blader, Snow Problemo, Plowsaurus Rex, Plow Chicka Plow Plow, Dwight D. Eisenhower, Sweet Caroline, Cleopatra, Rocky Plowboa, Sir Plowzalot, We're Off to See the Blizzard, Melton John, Just Scraping By, Edgar Allan Snow, Been There, Plowed That, Ice Ice Maybe, Fast and Furious. And that is our final 20 names. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for everyone in the public who contributed those names. Very clever. We will now move to public comments. If there is anyone who would like to be heard regarding this item, please come to the podium and state your name and neighborhood for the record. For anyone using the call-in service, please press *9 to indicate your desire to speak on this item. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Not seeing any public comments. Are there any comments or questions from council? Councilmember Hinkle.
All I will say is that I'm very sad we didn't have my Taylor Swift Life of a Snow Girl left on there. Maybe in another year, we'll get our Swifties organized next year. Thank you so much for this. This makes it fun, and hopefully we have some more snow to actually scoop. So
Yeah, definitely.
thank you.
Mine was Plowabunga, sorry. Plowabunga didn't make it either, so maybe next time. Yeah, so.
Okay, thank you for being here and for providing this fun initiative for the community to participate in.
Sure, of course. Thank you.
Thanks. Next is council member reports. Does any member of council have any reports or updates this evening? Councilmember Twist.
Hi, yeah. I just want to thank all the residents that came out to the Ward 1 Town Hall last night and Mayor Pro Tem Lim for providing backup. It was a good first town hall for me. It was good to hear from people, and I really appreciate that. We discussed mostly the vacancy here for the Ward 1 seat. And if anyone has questions about that, please reach out. There's a lot of information on the city website. Thank you.
Are there any other council member reports? I'll just report that about 100 youth attended the all-day Broomfield Teen Leadership Conference on Saturday at Broomfield High School. I had the opportunity to say a few words, but they didn't need any encouragement. They were a lively group, and they were off and ready to do great things and participating in the community. On January 15th, we had our boards and commissions open house. Again, we had a lot of enthusiastic staff who we'd like to thank for being there that evening to provide information to those interested residents who attended. Just a reminder that applications are due by January 20th if you want to apply for any boards and commissions. There's more, or January 30th, thank you. If you need any more information. Tomorrow evening, Library Arts History and Extension, in partnership with the Broomfield Library Friends Foundation, will host the first ever One Book, One Broomfield title reveal party tomorrow from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. at Rails End Beer Company. Everyone is invited to attend to be among the first residents to hear which title will inspire library discussions, activities, and the annual author talk this November. I'll be attending to lead the big reveal in place of Mayor Castriata. Anyone else? Okay. Next is public comments. We will now continue with this section. This is an opportunity for the public to comment on matters other than the items already listed elsewhere on this evening's agenda. If there is anyone who'd like to be heard, please come to the podium and state your name and neighborhood for the record. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Any general comment? Next is public comment from individuals joining via the phone. Please press *9 to indicate your desire to provide public comment. Once called to speak, please state your first and last name and neighborhood for the record. We don't see anyone on the phone either. Okay. Next is reports. We first have the Master Services Agreement Quarterly Report. This is the first item. It was provided on this evening's agenda under reports. We will now proceed with public comments. If any residents are using the call-in service, they should indicate their desire to speak by pressing *9 to raise their hand. We will start with in-person comments. If there is anyone who would like to be heard on this item, please come to the podium and state your name and neighborhood for the record. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Don't see anyone. Next is public comment from individuals joining via phone. Please press *9 to indicate your desire to provide public comment. Once called to speak, please state your first and last name and neighborhood for the record. We don't have anyone on the phone. Okay. Questions from council are next. Are there any questions or comments on this report? Nope, we don't see any. Okay. That finishes that report item. The 2025 fourth quarter expense report for elected officials was provided on this evening's agenda under reports. We will now move to public comments. Is there anyone who would like to be heard? Then please come to the podium and state your name and neighborhood for the record, or press *9 if you're using the call-in service. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. We don't see any public comments. Okay. Moving along. We will now continue with the reports section of the agenda. City Manager Hoffman or Attorney Rogers, do you have any reports this evening?
I do. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, and good evening, Community Council and those in attendance. 2 reports this evening, community updates rather. And we recognize that many residents may be feeling anxious or uncertain as to the national events as they unfold. Chief Hempelman and myself drafted a note to staff. This is an abbreviated version for our community. And how we show up during moments like this matters. As public servants, our responsibility is to remain calm, professional, and grounded in our role. The Broomfield Police Department has long been and continues to be a stabilizing and trusted presence in the Broomfield community, and that commitment remains unchanged. What the Broomfield Police Department and City County of Broomfield do and do not do. Under Colorado state law, the Broomfield Police Department does not participate in federal civil immigration enforcement. In practice, this means that BP officers do not enforce federal immigration laws. BPD officers do not assist in U.S. immigration and Immigration Custom Enforcement, or ICE, in civil immigration matters. The officers do not detain individuals based solely on administrative immigration warrants, and our city and county and staff do not and are not directed to inquire about immigration status for the purpose of enforcement. The role of the city and county in Broomfield is to provide services to ensure public safety and to support our community, not to enforce federal immigration policy. The role is to ensure that residents feel safe accessing our services, whether visiting the library, seeking assistance through human services, calling for emergency help, or engaging with any Broomfield program. Our employees remain focused on delivering services with professionalism, consistency, and respect. Broomfield's strength is our people, it's our staff, it's our community. We remain committed to lawful and transparent practices, maintaining public trust, and ensuring that our services are accessible to all, to those who rely on them. The same commitment to steady service-driven governance is also reflected in how Broomfield continues to be nationally recognized. Over the past 2 years alone, the city and county of Broomfield has received dozens of local, regional, and national acknowledgments, recognizing our strong economy, quality of life, governance, and overall livability. These recognitions reflect the consistent and long-term diligence of City Council, of our employees, and our community to build a balanced, resilient, and future-ready Broomfield. We're pleased to share that the livability has ranked Broomfield as the #1 best place to live out west. And contrary to some pictures and statements, we got some feedback that it's not the picture isn't Broomfield. And while we sure appreciate the critical eye of folks, it is in fact Broomfield. And so we were able to actually not have to correct livability to say that wasn't Broomfield at all, when in fact it was. In addition, Travel and Leisure recently highlighted Broomfield in its coverage, noting our access to outdoor recreation, strong and diverse local economy, highly rated schools, public safety, and proximity to both the Front Range and major employment centers, while still maintaining a community-oriented feel and a high quality of life. These accomplishments are not earned overnight. Much like our improved credit ratings, our strong bond positioning, they're a result of many years of thoughtful planning, disciplined decision-making, and the execution of long-term strategies. Staff is excited to continue, particularly through the end of the first quarter into the second quarter, with economic updates. All of the decisions that council makes, every council meeting is a budget-related financial decision. It's staff's role to provide cumulative effects of what those decisions mean, so that we are making intentional, directional decisions, not only on current events, but on what happens in the future. We continue to say, from a council perspective, from a staff perspective, and from a community's perspective, that Broomfield is stronger together. It allows us to sit with integrity and intentionality to deliver the services that we can continue to deliver with our heart full every day, that what we do means that we are here with purpose. Appreciate the opportunity, Mayor Pro Tem. That's the conclusion of the report.
Thank you very much for sharing your statement. We appreciate that. Attorney Rogers, did you have any report this evening?
No, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay, thank you. Council's consideration of the consent items is next. Item 6C is a Board of Social Services item. As a reminder, council is the Board of Social Services, so a vote by council on this is a vote of the Board of Social Services. The clerk will read all of the consent items by title, and there will be one opportunity for public comments and council questions and comments. Will the clerk please read agenda items 6A through 6F by title?
6A, approval of minutes for the regular council meetings of January 13th, 2026. 6B, council's consideration of event sponsorships 2026 slate. 6C, proposed resolution number 2026-08-BSS, acknowledging review of expenditures and electronic benefit transfers for July, August, and September 2025. 6D, proposed resolution number 2026-5, approving an intergovernmental agreement with Westminster Jefferson County Emergency Communications Authority and Coverage One to implement the Carbine APEX 911 call handling system. 6E, proposed resolution number 2026-7, approving an additional fee waiver request for Vista Point filing number 1, replat G, final plan and site development plan, urban renewal site plan. 6F, proposed resolution number 2026-09, approving an amendment to the consulting agreement between the City and County of Broomfield and Burns and McDonnell Engineering Company, Inc. for the Outlook Lift Station Site Application Project.
We will now proceed with public comments. If any residents are using this call-in service, they would indicate their desire to speak by pressing *9 to raise their hand. We will start with in-person comments. If there is anyone who would like to be heard, please come to the podium and state your name and neighborhood for the record. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Next is public comment from individuals joining via phone. Please press *9 to indicate your desire to provide public comment. Once called to speak, please state your first and last name and neighborhood for the record. We don't have anyone on the phone. Does any member of council have comments on these agenda items? Councilmember Ward.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I just have 2 questions as it relates to the social services expenditures for Q3 2025. My first question relates to a paragraph on page 2 of the memo where it says, for many years, counties have been able to retain TANF county reserves at 40% of their allocation. And currently CDHS staff are proposing reducing the county TANF reserve cap from 40% of the allocation to 20% of the allocation. Is that a rule that's being promulgated by CDHS, or is that something that the state legislature is going to have to take action on this legislative session?
I'm looking in the audience. Yes, please. Ms. Munoz, she is our Director of Human Services.
Hello, everybody. Lisana Munoz, Director, Human Services. We will follow back up with you, but we believe it's kind of a combination of both from the state, communicating that back down to us on what that directive is.
Okay. And then my next question is kind of the last sentence of that memo, of that paragraph says, allowing counties to retain only 20% of their diminished allocation would impact the amount of county reserve dollars available for use in times of extreme need. Can you give us an example of what an extreme need would be where we would tap into those reserves from TANF specifically?
I can give you some examples of how they've potentially been utilized in the past. And from my experience also just in Denver, for example, from the COVID pandemic, you can utilize certain funds to provide emergency support services, items, work with different programs or contractors. So there's a lot of flexibility, but it's also tied specifically to rules and families specifically associated with TANF who are receiving those funds.
Okay. And so a reduction from 40% to 20% would likely either see reductions in kind of backfilling those programs or just not being able to backfill those programs at all. Is that correct?
It's specifically more towards the reserve aspect of it, but yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Hinkle?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. This is just for staff's consideration for next year for event sponsorships. On 6B, we have an event sponsorship available for our Adams 12 Foundation, and I wanted to make sure that we have one next year for our BVSD folks. And I'm wondering if we need to maybe shift some money next year from maybe the Nutcracker to move that over to support our school system. So just something for next year. Thank you.
Are there any other comments or questions from council? Seeing none, is there a motion by council that consent items 6A through 6F be approved? Councilmember Ward?
So moved.
Councilmember Hinkle?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, council, please cast your vote electronically. All council members have entered their vote. And the results will now be displayed on the screen. That passes 9-0. Thank you. The first item under action items this evening is the public hearing for a development review application for a project in an area east of Sheridan Parkway and south of Colorado 7. I'll now declare the public hearing open. We will follow the city's standard public hearing procedures. First, staff will present a summary of the proposal. Next, we will have the applicant's presentation. Then we will ask for public comments and final comments from the applicant. And finally, questions from the city council members. Following council questions, I will close the hearing. Following the hearing will be council's discussion, consideration, and vote on the application based on the applicable criteria stated in the code. Council has a copy of the agenda memorandum, which I'll ask our staff to summarize.
Thank you, Mayor. And joining us this evening is Mr. Rowe. He is our planning manager. He's going to walk us through this item and introduce the applicant when appropriate. Mr. Rowe.
Thank you, Manager Hoffman. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and City Council. Brandon Rowe, planning manager. Next slide, please. The first project before you this evening is for a proposed final plat located generally east of Sheridan Parkway, south of Colorado 7, and west of the current Huron alignment, which is shown in the map. The overall plat area is identified on this slide for council and the public. To the north of the project area is CO7, along with portions of the Highlands and Palisade Park developments. To the east is additional vacant land within North Park. To the west is Sheridan Parkway and other portions of North Park that are known as Baseline West Village. This includes the Park 40 apartments as well as additional residential, a school, and there is a data center to the south closer to 160th. To the south is Parkside West and the Big Green, additional residential and open lands within Baseline. Overall, the applicant's proposed final plat would replat the entire approximately 205 acres of what is currently lots 2 and 3 of Block 1 of North Park, filing number 2, replat B, and then lots 1 of Block 12 and lot 1 of Block 13 of what is North Park, filing 2, replat D. So there's a couple prior plats that have been approved that are being combined into a replat. And this general area encompasses sites for additional right-of-way and future lots. Next slide, please. This is the overall map of the baseline development. This is provided to give some context of where this area is. The red circle didn't show up, but if you sort of look east of the Sheridan Parkway, or where the King Soopers logo is, sort of by the arrow, sort of diagonal from that is this general area for the development. I apologize for that. The new plat does dedicate right-of-way. Next slide, please. Does dedicate right-of-way for the extension of Promenade Street and create 4 lots and 2 tracks. The Promenade Street right-of-way accommodates curb-to-curb improvements for the roadway. This means that future streetscaping and sidewalks are not included at this time, but will be part of future development adjacent to the roadway. And then the 2 tracks that were being dedicated as part of this plat are intended to accommodate those future sidewalks along the eastern side of the promenade extension. Those will be constructed as part of this infrastructure project. The western side would be in the future. While the specific infrastructure involved in this subject application is limited to the extension of Promenade Street from its current terminus of West 167th Avenue north to Colorado 7, there is the reality that there is a larger context for development in the area. So baseline development along with other developments north and west of the site. There are a number of other infrastructure projects that are ongoing. These are detailed in the memo for council, but I'll highlight some of them for discussion this evening. So these are other roadway projects that are ongoing or anticipated in the future along the Colorado 7 corridor in the surrounding area. So we have the north side widening of Colorado 7, which has been widened to its final alignment from Sheridan Parkway to Huron Street on the northern portion. The only remaining section of the north side of Colorado 7 that needs to be widened is adjacent to the Northlands development, which is the former IKEA site. That section is anticipated to be completed with the development of that property in the future. The south side widening, McWhinney intends to widen Colorado 7 to its final alignment on the south side from Sheridan Parkway to Promenade Street. So sort of that hard corner that is proposed to be the Center Street area. That would be done as part of the Center Street District. Not part of this development application under review, but will be part of a future application that council will see likely later this year. Colorado 7 restriping. This is a CIP project anticipated to be completed later this month. The project includes an eastbound right turn lane along Colorado 7 at Sheridan, restriping the corridor from Sheridan to I-25 to include 2 through lanes in the east and west direction, as well as mill and overlay for the pavement from Sheridan to I-25. No. Medians are anticipated at some point in the future as well along Colorado 7. And then the Huron Street realignment and widening. So Huron Street realignment from Colorado 7 to West 160th Avenue. That realignment from its current configuration, which is sort of that straight shot north-south, is anticipated to be completed by McWhinney when development occurs on the eastern half of the baseline development, which triggers the need for the roadway improvements. The widening south of 160th Avenue, so this would be south of the general area where the Amazon distribution center is anticipated to be developed in the future. A conceptual feasibility study was completed by Broomfield in 2024. The current 5-year CIP plan anticipates design beginning in 2029 with construction at some point after that. It's important to note that there are existing agreements between the city and county of Broomfield and McWhinney regarding the baseline development, including the Managed Growth and Development Agreement, commonly referred to as the MGDA. This outlines how public infrastructure will be phased within the development area, timelines, allocations of responsibility, and the requirements thereto. Those are also mirrored in future subdivision improvement agreements for each project. It's a lot of words, so I will be happy to answer questions about that. But generally, that concludes my presentation. I do want to note that concept reviews are not required for final plats, so there was not a concept review held for this application. a neighborhood meeting for the overall Center Street district, which included this application and an application that you hear from me later this evening as well, was held on January 22nd, 2025. To the best of my knowledge, public notice requirements were met for this development by the applicant. No key issues have been identified as part of this application. If adopted, the final plat would then be eligible for recordation, and they could move forward to the process of starting to do construction drawings and permits as necessary. And this concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Next is the applicant presentation. Justice, we ask staff to keep their presentations brief. I ask the applicant to be concise in their presentation. Will the applicant's representative please identify themselves for the record before beginning their brief presentation this evening? Thank you.
Good evening, council members and Mayor Pro Tem. My name is Mike McBride. I'm a project manager with McWhinney, now Realberry. I think Kyle talked to you guys about that last week. And you're going to see me a few times in the next few months because I'm bringing my projects to council. So like Raleigh Park's coming in February. Center Street is here. So I've got probably 2 hearings with Center Street. And I'm excited because I've been working on this stuff for a long time here. So I went through my email today. I think I sent out a kind of a heed to our consultants, Thanksgiving 2024. It said, hey, I think we got a project, like, let's go. So all that time got us here today, 18 months. And we had a rock star consultants and we had a great planner in Brandon. So excited to bring this here today. So I got a short presentation. Center Street, this is like our official brand. This is like the kind of the vibe we go for at Center Street. It's the tagline is like find your center. It's supposed to be kind of this bespoke kind of town center for Baseline. Not flashy, like not glitzy, but like high quality, like a curated mix of tenants. We've got the Whole Foods that kind of that anchors the corner of Center Street. So it feels like a good fit as far as like, hey, we're not trying to be flashy, but we're creating a really high quality place. So let's go next slide. And I always throw these in here. The guiding principles at Baseline, environmental stewardship, healthy living and innovation. And, we try to weave these into all our projects at Baseline, whether they're residential, industrial, or our commercial projects. Next slide. So yeah, just orienting you guys on the site. Center Street's up there in the red up top. We've been working hard building out Parkside West. Kind of marching south down Sheridan with all the residential development. We just finished the Big Green this summer. So that's like our 4-acre turf field right in the middle there. And then later in February, I'm going to bring you guys Raleigh Park, which is like the signature element of the Parklands. And we've been working on Parkside West at the very south end there at Sheridan and 160th. That's a big kind of residential development. And then, but Center Street is like the showcase of this, the western side of Baseline. So that's where we're going to bring you today. Next slide. Okay, so we split Center Street up into a few different packages, and that's what you're seeing the first 2 packages tonight. And then we have our last submittal into staff for review for SDP package 2. So I'm just going to go by colors. What you're seeing tonight is infrastructure package 1, which is the orange on the right side, and then SDP package 1, which is the pink, so all the internal roads. And then we've submitted infrastructure package 2, which is the Highway 7 widening along the north there. We've submitted that to CDOT a few times. It's under review with CDOT. It gets routed to Broomfield. It doesn't go through a Broomfield review, but it goes to CDOT. CDOT sends it to Broomfield Engineering. So, Bryce and Matthew Deaver are very involved in the design of that highway widening. And really, we want a finished product along Center Street. We want the highway to look great. We want Sheridan to look great. We all want our internal roads to look great. Everything looks kind of like a new place along Center Street there. So, and really the reason we broke these packages up is a little bit selfishly, I wanted stuff to build. Like once Center Street's ready to go, I wanted to make sure there was nothing holding us up either internally or externally. If we're still fiddling around with stuff in the blue package, or that's still going through entitlements and we had money to go, I want to be able to build Promenade Street. I want to be able to start building those internal roads and get us going vertically sooner. So that's kind of why you see these two packages broken out. In front, and the first two are the orange and the pink packages tonight. So let's go next slide. Center Street as a whole, you know, it's kind of, you know, this retail core for baseline. Again, I don't want to get in too much into it tonight. I want to focus that on our SDP package 2. But you know, it's this retail core surrounded by high density residential and anchored by our fantastic grocer. So it should be a great kind of front door for baseline. Next slide. And then just looking at the platting, so you know we've got 3 plats that are for Center Street, and so I'll go over the first one we've got right now, and then I think we'll go to the next agenda item, and then I'll look at the last plat. But this is kind of how we've got the existing lots are laid out at baseline. We just kind of have 2 huge chunks of land. Both owned by Baseline. 167th right away is dedicated there. It comes from Sheridan, kind of takes a right turn, and then Promenade heads south. And so we got our 2 big Baseline parcels, and then the parcel on the very right is the UC Health parcel. So let's go next slide. So when we dedicate right away, and you know, to line up to the roads to the north and to meet the grid and kind of do all that stuff appropriately, this is the kind of the right of way layout that we need to look at. So that we need to dedicate to build that Promenade Street. And so it's mostly on baseline land, and then a little bit of chunk of UC Health land that meets at the intersection there. So this Promenade Street plat and roadway construction is, you know, we have construction documents for that Promenade Street, and then the traffic signal at Highway 7 and Promenade. So that is included in this package, has been reviewed by CDOT and Broomfield Engineering. All right, next slide. And then this is kind of an illustration of the infrastructure package that comes with this first plat. It's the extension of Promenade from 167th all the way up to the highway. It meets that same road section that we've got going all the way south. So that's like 3 10-foot lanes. So it's got 2 lanes and like a center turn lane. It's got a 5-foot bike lane with a 1.5-foot buffer between the streets or between the cars and the bike lane, and then parallel parking the whole way. So it's got an 8-foot parallel parking. I think it's like a 61-foot road section, but it matches everything we've got going down south. And then when we get to the intersection, we mix the striping up a little bit to get kind of 2 left turn lanes out, 1 lane through, and then a right turn lane. So we're also proposing these enhanced intersections. So they're like concrete intersections. We've got them going south on Promenade, and they've got like color concrete crosswalks. They're striped for pedestrians. And the intent is to act as a little bit of a speed control. You get a little bit of a kind of a different material that you go over, and so you feel like you're entering an intersection, you know? So we've got those at our big intersections at, I'm going to call it Mariposa right in the middle there. And then Lexington, which is that northern one. All right, next slide. All right, I'm going to leave this one till the next agenda item, but that was for everything for replat J.
Thank you. Next is public comment. If any residents are using the call-in service, they should indicate their desire to speak by pressing *9 to raise their hand. We will start with in-person comments. If there is anyone who would like to be heard, please come to the podium and state your name and neighborhood for the record. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much. My name is Garrett Baum, and I'm the president of 6 Palisade Park Metro Districts. I'm here on behalf of them. Also Wendy's, Also, Palisade Park Productions, the amphitheater. And I've also spoken with Children's Hospital and their concerns as well, which mimic what I'll speak to tonight. We're here to encourage you to require the developer to relocate existing Huron Street to Promenade as part of this project. This was originally anticipated with the UC Health project over a decade ago, and continually being told that that was going to occur. The traffic signal and widening of North Highway 7 has been done from the IKEA site all the way to County Road 7. Also improvements that have been done by Palisade Park in front of IKEA and north on Huron, all 4 lanes and median. And the concern is that it's just not a safe situation now. You've got a series of lights and a series of interchanges. We had a call 3 years ago with the City of Broomfield staff, the developer. We were on that call. And 3 years ago, we're under the impression and we're told that Huron would be realigned and connect with Promenade, and that would happen in 2 years. Other times, the city and us have been told that it would happen with UC Health. What we're hearing now is that it'll be when the development occurs east of Huron. Maybe last night was the neighborhood meeting for Advent Health. We're aware of that, and I went to that. But you know, that just like there was no guarantee that UC Health was going to develop, now it's been 10 years and Huron hasn't been realigned. You know, now maybe it's with Advent Health. You know, converting that to a right in, right out, or even a 3/4 movement is still not a safe situation there. So, you know, on behalf of all the districts and on behalf of those other entities that are up there, we think it's important that Huron be realigned now and that the safety Highway 7 is of the utmost importance. I would also share with you that, you know, as we developed ahead of construction and ahead of development and ahead of deals, we did widenings of Highway 7 before Children's Hospital. We did Huron before it was needed and before IKEA happened. We've reinvested in the community, and I would encourage you to ask this developer to invest in the community as well. Now to have that Huron Street realigned to Promenade and ultimately with the traffic signal at County Road 7 that was just discussed. So thank you and appreciate the time.
Thank you, Mr. Baum. Are there any other in-person comments? Next is public comment from individuals joining via phone. Please press *9 to indicate your desire to provide public comment. Once called to speak, please state your first and last name and neighborhood for the record. We do not have any phone-in comments. Does the applicant have any final comments?
Sure. So that yellow package I was talking about, which is the Highway 7 widening, which we've submitted to CDOT, had a lot of coordination meetings with them. We did understand the challenge with the installation of the traffic signal at Palisade Parkway, and that the Palisade Parkway and the existing Huron signals were kind of too close together. And CDOT said, hey, you know, you guys got to figure this out. You get 18 months to remove that Huron signal. And so we talked with engineering a bunch. You know, engineering was going to work on a capital project to remove that signal and restripe the existing Huron to a 3/4 turn movement. So you could turn in, you know, right in, right out, and then a left turn in. And we said, hey, let us take care of that. In our Highway 7 widening package, we removed the existing Huron signal. We restripe the existing Huron to a 3/4 turn like CDOT and Broomfield Engineering intended. And we're kind of doing that all on our dime. So we think we've kind of solved that problem with the Palisade Parkway and the existing Huron signal kind of being too close together per standards. And so we volunteered in our CDOT package, in our highway widening package. We'll take care of that problem. We'll remove the signal. We'll get the restriping done with the Center Street project. So
Thank you. Questions from council are next. Members should limit themselves to questions during this portion. The time to introduce conditions for approval and state positions for or against this item is later. Are there any questions from council? Councilmember Anderson.
Right, thank you. And part of the concern that I had when I saw this, as on our call-up provisions was the Highway 7, the Colorado 7 traffic signal, the realignment of Huron Street and the breaking up into the two different packages. And I think that caused some confusion, at least on my side, because the timing wasn't there of when we're going to see some of the improvements and then the other ones following after. So I think having a little bit more on the record of when all this is going to occur would be really helpful to understand that when do you anticipate that, understanding that there's complexities with CDOT, when do you anticipate that infrastructure package 2 coming forward? Would that be occurring before a lot of the upward development in Center Street?
Yeah, like I want everybody to understand there's really no phasing at Center Street. All this is constructed as one package. So we'll issue bonds, we'll issue like dirt bonds against Center Street at the beginning, and it's bonded against all the AV that'll be built at Center Street. And that chunk of money builds everything. It builds Promenade, it builds all the internal streets, it builds all the parking lot, Metro District parking lots, it widens the highway. So we do have different design packages, but the intent is it's all built at one time.
Okay, and I understand now your reasoning of bringing forward the first infrastructures. You can start to build that out as you're still, as the pieces come in, but.
I was trying to just make sure I had runway to build stuff as people were fiddling around with other things, so.
Okay, and so you anticipate do you anticipate the Highway 7 improvements occurring at the same time as the development?
Correct. So when we make all those connections to Highway 7 from our internal streets at Center Street, the Highway 7 widening will be done at the same time. It's all designed as one. We don't really have an interim condition where one of these projects doesn't happen. So, and it's all estimated to be constructed as one phase.
Okay, and then in the original submittal, there was not shown on tonight's slides, but coming off of Palisade Parkway, there was an east-west road that went into the UC Health property. And it was like a temporary alignment, and then that caught up to Huron Street. It's linked from the letter that was included.
We had a temporary realignment of Huron. We ran into issues with the landowner to make that a viable project. So we, our alternate was to fix the existing Huron intersection, remove the signal, restripe that intersection, kind of the way that CDOT and Brookfield Engineering would do it if they were doing it themselves.
Okay, and then this question is getting a little bit outside of Center Street District, so this will come up in the future. But I think another concern that was coming off of all of these, trying to get the Huron Street realignment and going to the east was seemingly further down the road until the update last week, and you started to show the development that was coming sooner than I think some of us anticipated. So the Huron Street realignment, it just feels like a mess right now when you're driving in that area, and I know you're aware of that. And so that connection, that's moving up too in the timeline, right? And that's coming in the future.
Yeah, I mean, if our project happens over there, that realigns Huron, and that does a lot for baseline. That opens up a lot for baseline. So, and that moves it way ahead of when Jim had it, outlined before. So.
And that helps. I think I had one other question, but I don't remember what it was. Okay, that's helpful. I'll come back if my colleagues go, and then I'll ask my final question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Hinkle.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I'm just curious if you're going to then keep it as the 3/4 turn. That's my first question. And then are we predicting that people are going to take a right just to make a U-turn, just to go left and head west?
you know, ultimately Sheridan is the better road, you know, if, you know, if you need, if you're looking for full movement, head down 160th, come down Sheridan. It's got, you know, a full signalized intersection. You know, you'll be able to come down Promenade, hit that traffic signal and make full movements there as well. So, it will be, you know, it'll keep that straight shot and it'll do the three-quarter movement, but, you'll be able to turn right and turn left and then a left in. So
Turn a right on Highway 7, sorry.
you
Turn-
come in, you could take a right
From
in
Highway 7.
from Highway 7, you could take a right out. And then if you're coming eastbound on Highway 7, you can take a left to go south on Huron.
And let's say you're leaving and you want to head west. What's the option there?
Then you're going to need to go down Sheridan.
Okay, so that'll cause probably more through traffic through the neighborhoods, I'm assuming then?
Well, 160th is down there, you know, 160th is a straight shot through without any neighborhoods, you know.
What has CDOT said? What have they said about the three-quarter turn versus just being, you know, vacating Huron and just relocating that?
They preferred the three-quarter turn versus they want to get rid of that signal. The signals are spaced too close together. So that's the impetus for making the change at existing Huron is they don't like the spacing of those signals. They want them spaced further apart. And so they want to get rid of that signal. And we said, hey, we can do that. We'll make kind of their next best option is the three-quarter turn. So.
But what's stopping you from going even further and making it more safe?
I mean, we did explore that. We couldn't get the road through that property. So, you know, we can look at finding another way through, but ultimately the ultimate Huron realignment is kind of the answer there.
And you say that won't happen until you have other developments, is that right?
Yes, and I think we have a kind of a catalyzing development that'll create that infrastructure.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Ward.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I have a couple questions about the alignment of Promenade.
Yeah.
Number one, just to be perfectly clear, I know we've had some conversations about Huron and Promenade Street, so I just want to make sure we're very clear. Is the three-quarter turn going to be also at Promenade, or is that going to be a full right in, right out, and then left in, left out?
Yeah, so that's going to be a new traffic signal that we're going to install. So it's fully signalized at full movement.
Just wanted to be perfectly clear on that since we've been oscillating between the two streets.
Yeah.
I guess my next question is, as it relates to the kind of size of Promenade Street, did you all consider or do an analysis to see whether that third middle turn lane adds or creates induced demand, for lack of a better term? And does it increase speeds through Promenade Street compared to just a simple two-lane, one in each direction street?
Yeah, I think it allows us to have a consistent street section without adding and removing turn lanes. So it kind of helps make that the kind of the curb lines more consistent. We do add bulb outs at kind of all the pedestrian crossings. And like I said, we have the enhanced intersections. So, and those are tabled, so you kind of feel them as you drive over them. But we have the nice buffer between the bike lane and the roads, and then the parking on the outside. So I think for Center Street, it's probably more important than what we have down south, because Center Street, we want those center turn lanes. So everybody turning left, like coming south, everybody turning left into Center Street, they're not blocking the road. They can kind of pull into that center turn lane and make a move when there's an opening. So I think it's like I said, I think it's more important for Center Street than it is what we've had down south. So.
Okay. My question though is, did you do an analysis?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, our traffic study has, you know, what the volumes of each roadway are, and then the volumes that that roadway is anticipated to have dictates the type of road we need to build.
Okay. I'll get to comments on that later. I'm happy you brought up the bulb outs at the intersections, because that was going to be my next question, actually. So you read my mind. How far back do those bulb outs go from the intersection?
So they capture the parallel parking. So like the bike lane goes all the way through, and then so they kind of come 8 foot out. And then we usually have like stormwater infrastructure in those. So they're 30 or 40 feet long. And then you go back to the parallel parking section.
Okay. Thank you. And then my next question is, when you were considering the design of this street, why didn't you do, let's just take what you have currently, 2 through lanes, one in each direction, the center turn lane, and then put the parallel parking next, and then do the kind of bike lane instead of doing, curb, parallel parking, bike lane, street, or lane, bike, parallel park?
Yep. I think one of them is consistency. Like we looked at a few different scenarios, especially when we were looking at diagonal parking on Promenade. And the reaction always was diagonal parking and bike lanes like don't go great together, because the parallel parker or the diagonal parker, when he pulls out, they can't see the bike coming down the lane. So the parallel parking seemed like a kind of a safer option. And it's kind of consistency and knowability for the biker. Like they know what to expect when they come. We don't want to change it for them, 3 times going down Promenade. We want them to know what they have to do, how they ride this street kind of the whole way. So I think that was our reasoning. The diagonal parking threw a loop on it, when we were considering diagonal parking, it kind of threw it for a loop, and we thought about bringing it off the bikes off trail. I still didn't like that, because then I was confusing the biker again. I was like, where am I supposed to go? So I think being consistent through baseline, at least in this Promenade section, was the most appropriate response.
As a biker, it really isn't going to be that confusing. I'm just going to say that. My next question is, as that bike lane goes up to the intersection of Highway 7 and Promenade, how is that bike lane aligned? Are we seeing kind of our traditional setup where turning traffic has to cross the bike lane to go into a dedicated turn lane before turning out, or do you have a different setup at that intersection?
It is that the right turn lane crosses the bike lane, and you have that kind of the hashing where those two conflict, and then the bike lane is between the biker is between the guy that's going straight and the person that's turning right.
Okay. Did you guys consider, instead of doing that, having the bike lane kind of come up and do a grade separated kind of path alongside, so that way it's left turn lane, right turn lane, and then that protected, quote unquote, bike lane, so that way there isn't that conflict between the two, and it provides an easier kind of access to the bike infrastructure that is going to be on Highway 7, which likely is going to be a multi-use path on one side, because there's no crossing baseline to go straight. So did you guys factor that in, or is that something that just happened to get overlooked?
No, we did. Then, if you put the biker outside of the right turn lane, then if the biker wants to go left, he's gonna have to make a movement too that could possibly conflict with that right turn movement on the car.
Well, you're gonna have that anyways. If you have someone coming down Highway 7, they're gonna have to conflict with the car that's gonna want to turn right. And the way you'd set it up is, since it's above and it's flush with the sidewalk, for lack of a better term, they're already going to have to stop to probably push a button to activate the crosswalk sign. So I don't exactly see that logic.
Yeah. We also wanted to kind of line up with the striping on the north side of the road there. So we did keep with a kind of a more traditional bike configuration at the intersection.
Okay, I guess I'm just confused because your whole point of Baseline is, or especially Center Street, is that it's, pedestrian friendly and it's a safe place to be and whatnot. And I'm not seeing how some of the decisions you've made enforce or enhance that safety for vulnerable road users.
Yeah. I've got some exhibits for like our Center Street proper presentation, but I think the intention was Promenade is like a through street. Promenade is like, hey, if I'm going from one end to the Baseline to the other, just like Huron's going to be, I have consistent infrastructure. I kind of have a little more traditional layout at the intersections. And really the rest, Center Street internally, we're trying to get with smaller streets. I don't know if you've driven through Baseline. We do have skinnier streets for kind of make it kind of a more neighborhood feel and can keep speeds down a little. But it is kind of more of a Sharrow situation. So those smaller streets, we don't have the width for all the different lanes for all different mobility. So it's more about, hey, listen, everybody in the neighborhoods needs to share the streets and everybody needs to kind of be safe with their neighbors. So.
Okay, I guess one final question for me right now is when you were doing all of this analysis and your traffic studies and et cetera, did you look at kind of other safety studies that have been done demonstrating the benefits and downsides of having, more protected infrastructure and how many kind of pedestrian and cyclists' lives are either saved or reduced number of injuries, et cetera, when you were doing this, or was that not something that got factored in?
Oh, no. I mean, we've got, the consultants we use are well-versed in kind of the latest and greatest strategies for kind of multimodal transportation. And you hear Kyle say it every time that's the vision for Baseline. So I could say, yes, we did consider all those, but this is the configuration we chose. So.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other council members that wish to ask questions in the first round? No? Okay, we'll go back to Councilmember Anderson.
Okay, thank you. I do have one final question here. So I just want to make sure I'm understanding correctly with the UC Health property. Because there was going to be that temporary alignment that curved up and caught Huron Street. But now that's not in the plans. And then as you get the approvals from CDOT, the current Huron Street intersection is a stoplight that will be removed, correct?
Correct.
I'm just thinking about everyone that currently uses Huron Street to get from 160th up to Baseline, Colorado 7. Is the intention that the development to the east, Trailmark, and I forget the name of the other one, that the Huron Street realignment would be occurring at the same time that Huron Street's being taken out? Like as that piece of Huron is removed, that the Huron Street realignment would be put in place?
Correct. So yeah, once the ultimate Huron is constructed, we kind of just put barriers at existing Huron between the highway and the property line, and we can kind of deconstruct that asphalt. Ultimately, we don't have the ability to remove the actual roadway from the property, but it won't be connected to the highway at that point.
And it would be rebuilt at about the same time to come out.
Yeah.
East. Okay. Okay, that's helpful. And then the only connection from Center Street to Huron Street would then be Lexington Street that runs diagonal.
That's the.
And that would be put in about this. Would that be put in about the same time as Center Street is moving forward and all these pieces are happening, or would that be much further down the road? Would Center Street be connected to Huron and the development to the east, or would that be a ways down the road?
That Lexington, it's kind of dictated by the development of that Parkside East, which I think I came here before to show you guys. But we need that kind of the residential development on the other side to activate in order to build that connection. So.
Okay, so they might be temporarily disconnected from each other for a little while, but they would eventually then be connected. Okay. Okay, thank you. That is my final question. Thank you.
Great.
Okay, there being no further questions, the public hearing is closed. Next is council's consideration of proposed resolution number 2026-13. Will the clerk please read the proposed resolution by title?
7A, proposed resolution number 2026-13, approving North Park filing number 2, replat J, final plat.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the resolution? Councilmember Anderson? Is there a second? Councilmember Delgadillo?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Councilmember Ward?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I appreciate the developer bringing forward this proposal, but based on kind of what you've presented and some of the answers to the questions you've given me and my colleagues, I am going to be voting against this replat. I don't think that the infrastructure you've put in place and the design standards you've used protect vulnerable road users, bikes and pedestrians specifically, enough. I don't think you've mitigated those concerns, especially since the Baseline neighborhood and Center Street itself, excuse me, are really meant to be safe places for people to be walking and biking. And while I know you said Center Street is really the focus on that, you need to be protecting the people to get to those places. And I think for us as council, if one of our goals is to reduce vehicle miles traveled, reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and ensure that the vision of Baseline to be a safe, bikeable, walkable neighborhood is fulfilled, then we need to make sure we're holding the developers' feet to the fire. And I don't see that this has happened with this particular development, so I will be voting no. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Council, please cast your vote electronically. All council members have entered their vote. The results will now be displayed on the screen. That passes 6-2 with 1 recuse. Thank you. The next item under action items this evening is the public hearing for an application for a final plat and site development plan for internal roads serving the proposed Center Street district. I'll now declare the public hearing open. We will follow the city's standard public hearing procedures. First, staff will present a summary of the proposal. Next, we will have the applicant's presentation, if applicable. Then we will ask for public comments and final comments from the applicant. And finally, questions from the city council members. Following city council questions, I will close the hearing. Following the hearing will be council's discussion, consideration, and vote on the application based on the applicable criteria stated in the code. Council has a copy of the agenda memorandum, which I'll ask our staff to summarize. Thank you, Mr. Rowe.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Again, Brandon Rowe, Planning Manager with Community Development. Next slide, please. So this area is going to look very familiar because we were just here. But the second project before you this evening is for a proposed final plat and site development plan for the Center Street District in Baseline. That Center Street District is shown outlined in the sort of goldy yellow on the map. That is the district boundaries. The configuration on the eastern side that sort of runs up to what is labeled as County Road 7 is where that Promenade Street extension runs that was just approved in the prior final plat. This final plat is for the western portion of the site that was just replatted. It's approximately 60 acres. It is what is now Lot 1 of North Park filing to replat J as of about 2 minutes ago. That new plat dedicated the lot This plat now in this application is further subdividing this property and dedicating the right of ways for what are the internal streets for the Center Street district. So we've now moved within the district to start to establish lot configurations and street configurations for Center Street. All of these streets are going to be public roadways and will be dedicated to Broomfield for ownership and maintenance. The plat identifies a number of utility easements, which were dedicated as part of the North Park filing 2 replat J final plat. And prior to recording this plat, we will add in all necessary information if there are spots to write things in that you see on the digital version that was provided to you. Next slide, please. There's the red circle I was looking for in the last presentation. So that is Center Street. This is the area focused in this application. Again, the plat is for the overall area in red. The site development plan is limited to approximately 4.3 acres worth of right-of-way only. So it's just the streets. Again, it is just the curb to curb improvements. So the streetscape, the landscaping, the sidewalks will all be part of a future development. I think the applicant has alluded to the fact that they anticipate that coming later this year. That'll show the configuration of buildings and the actual streetscape element. This is just travel lanes, crosswalks, things of that nature. They include 2 11-foot wide travel lanes and an 8-foot wide parallel parking along both sides of the roadways. And then there are raised crosswalks and pedestrian crossings along with concrete intersections. The applicant sort of alluded to some of that, talking about promenade in the prior application. There's a similar approach here for placemaking as the applicant has described it. One thing I do want to note, it was discussed in the memo, but Broomfield's Public Works Department was not supportive of taking on the maintenance responsibility for those enhanced concrete features, just because they can pose maintenance challenges. If you have to replace things, it's a challenge to match colors. So you sort of get this patch of sort of brand new concrete versus established sort of older concrete. So to mitigate that, the applicant is working with our staff to enter into a voluntary agreement where they would maintain those features. Broomfield would maintain the streets themselves, but those enhanced concrete features would be privately maintained, likely through the Metropolitan District. Next slide, please. So this slide shows the boundaries of the project. Promenade Street is hatched for you. That was part of the prior application. And then you can see the internal roadways of Osage, Center Street Place, Lexington Street, and Mariposa Street. All of those were identified and labeled in the plans that were provided to you. And next slide, please. Again, a concept review was held for the Center Street District itself on June 21st of 2022. The concept review covered the entire Center Street development, not just the layout and the street configuration, but also the formal vertical buildings. It should be noted that since that concept review, the site design has changed, including realignment of roadways. So if you looked at that screenshot that was added to the memo of the old concept plan and looked at sort of the configuration today, they don't look identical, but it's the same area, same general acreage, and same general concept of what the development will look like. A neighborhood meeting was held again for the entire Center Street District on January 22nd, 2025. To the best of staff's knowledge, public notice requirements have been met for this meeting as well. Next slide, please. There are no key issues identified with this application. LERC did hold a hearing for this proposed development and the prior application. I apologize, I meant to mention that. Both of these applications were heard on December 8th of 2025, and both the one that was just approved and this one were voted unanimously to approve by LERC with no conditions other than the subject to call up. If this application was approved, it would be able to be recorded and the applicant could move forward with their infrastructure improvements. And I'm happy to answer any questions. I believe the applicant has a briefer presentation this time for this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rowe. Next is the applicant presentation. Just as we ask staff to keep their presentations brief, I ask the applicant to be concise in their presentation. Will the applicant please do the presentation? Identify yourself again before your presentation. Thank you.
Hey, great. Again, Mike McBride with Realberry. I'm the project manager for kind of all these infrastructure projects. And so, yeah, this is our second plat. This is the dedication of the right of way internal to Center Street. And it creates these super blocks. And, you know, my fear was realized with this project as far as kind of our development team tinkering around that Osage Street, that far western street. Before it kind of swooped around, it hit the Inkwell intersection. And then at the last minute, they said, "Hey, we don't need that. Let's straighten it out and connect it kind of midway between these intersections." So, I think Brandon was great. We were able to get this in the revised plat in right before and get around a review before this hearing. But like I said, that's kind of why I wanted to break these out, because I have other developers kind of tinkering around with this stuff, and I personally I need to lock this stuff down so I can get costs figured out and right away dedicated the entitlements figured out, and get this all priced and get a contractor on board. So again, these are all the internal streets, and I think the next slide has got the infrastructure. So these are roads a little more similar to the rest of Baseline. So if you look down at at Parkside West, just south of here, those roads are about 32 feet flow line to flow line, and they've got 6-foot parallel parking lanes and 11-foot drive lanes. And Center Street being a commercial district, I wanted to get a little more room for the parallel parking. So it's the same 11-foot drive lanes, and then it's 8-foot parallel parking lanes. And I think that's just give a comfort level to your customers as they come and they feel like they can park here. They feel kind of that they can navigate these streets. They are still very skinny, and they kind of create that village-like feel. So, and then we do have, like Brandon mentioned, we've got the tabled concrete intersections at kind of our major intersections. And we did run into an interesting conversation through that design process. We had more tabled intersections. We had more crosswalks through through the internal streets, like through the retail core. And we did get a little pushback from the traffic department. It said, "Hey, we think you were almost over-informing the driver. If there's a tabled intersection, there's a tabled intersection. It's like you kind of stop caring about the tabled intersections. If you hit 3 in a row and you're like, hey, these are just the kind of obstacles." So they kind of wanted to make sure we picked the most important ones. And so these do align with like paseos between buildings. They align with the plaza, where we want the street to feel like the same height as the plaza, so you could extend plaza activities across the street. And then kind of the bigger intersections, as you come in off Highway 7, you want to feel like you've entered someplace. So those 3 on Mariposa were kind of the important ones. But this is like our pedestrian, our pedestrian core of Center Street. So we wanted to make these streets feel kind of comfortable and react to the kind of the architecture and the site layout as well. Do I have a next slide? That's it. This is my backup slide to talk about that intersection.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. McBride. We will now proceed with public comments. If any residents are using the call-in service, they should indicate their desire to speak by pressing *9 to raise their hand. We will start with in-person comments, though. If there is anyone who would like to be heard, please come to the podium and state your name and neighborhood for the record. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Hello again, my name is Garrett Baum. I'm here on behalf of all 6 Palisade Park Metro districts. the Palisade Park Amphitheater, Wendy's, and my conversations with Children's Hospital and their concerns as well. Obviously, what you've seen here is the SDP, the roadway network, but what that's going to do is going to bring a lot of development. It's going to bring a lot of traffic. It's going to be a grocery store that they mentioned, right? A significant grocery store that's going to get a lot of people that are going to want to get there from their neighborhoods and to their from home. You know, and the impact along Highway 7 is significant. That existing Huron Street that they've discussed, the right in, right out, or the three-quarter movement, is not a safe condition. CDOT wants the traffic signal to go away. They are correct. That's what CDOT's been saying for a dozen years since UC Health purchased their land. They know there's going to be quite a bit of traffic. They have said, well, maybe we can live with a three-quarter movement and a right in, right out. But the reality is CDOT wants that gone and they want it sealed off. Their ultimate solution and the ultimate condition there is to have, and they showed it on their exhibit, the overall map that they had, which showed a street coming from existing Huron and going to the west and connecting at Promenade, and then the intersection with the lit intersection at Promenade and County Road 7 and Highway 7. And that's the safer condition. And the other thing you heard was, and I think Councilmember Anderson asked the question a number of times, what was the timing of what was going to happen on Ultimate Huron? And what you heard was the same thing we've been listening to for a dozen years. It's going to happen when development occurs over there. Well, there is development occurring. And you are allowed to require that to be an approval requirement of a project going forward. When Amazon went in, I stood at the podium when it was over there, and I identified this as a problem. And I said, those Amazon trucks are going to go north on Huron, and it's a dangerous situation. And what we heard then was from their traffic engineer, no, they're going to go east and west on 160th. That's what they're going to do. Well, now we've got it there. And for a fact, those trucks go north. And then they want to go left. And when they can't, and they get tired of waiting at the light, they go right. And then they try to go 2 lanes over and turn left on the turn lane on Palisade Parkway. And then they go up to 169th, and then they go through the residential past the Children's Hospital. And then they come back around over to County Road 7, and then they go south again and turn around. And then what you heard from the presenter was, well, those cars are going to go west on 160th to be able to go left on Highway 7.
Mr. Baum, could you please wrap up?
Oh, I can, sorry. But that's not what we're seeing today with Amazon. So that's not what we'll see in the future. And yes, CDOT and Broomfield's engineering has said, okay, well, maybe we look at this. But I don't think that's what's best for Broomfield or the residents up there. It's not the safest condition. And you have an opportunity to say, we need you to do the connection from Huron over to Promenade. Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you. If any residents are using the call-in service, they should indicate their desire to speak by pressing *9 to raise their hand. We will start, is there anyone on the phone? No, there's not. Okay. Does the applicant have any final comments?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate that, we've had considerable coordination with CDOT, with Broomfield Engineering. This is the solution that both groups have decided upon. And so, and we're going to pay for it. We're going to build it. So I think that's my answer.
Okay, thank you. Questions from council are next. Members should limit themselves to questions during this portion. The time to introduce conditions for approval or state positions for or against this item is later. Are there any council questions? Councilmember Hinkle.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. It sounds like there's a lot of input from the north and safety concerns and traffic concerns. And while we were able to approve Amazon, we have a lot of light industrial as well as housing. My question is to you, would you be willing to realign Huron to Promenade as a condition of approval here.
So realigning Huron to the Huron to the north
To Promenade.
to Promenade. I'd have to find a way over there. So I can't go through the UC Health property because I can't get in. I can't get an easement through there. We barely got the right of way for the previous application, but I can find a way, you know.
I would prefer that we find a way for Huron Street to be realigned in order for this to be approved.
Okay.
Thank you. Councilmember Ward.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I guess my first question is going to be for the applicant, and then I'll get a question to staff. Why did you choose an 11-foot wide lane instead of a 10-foot wide lane?
It's the section in our PUD. So that's the roadways that are approved in our PUD.
Okay. You didn't contemplate wanting to come back and ask for a variance so you could go to a 10-foot lane?
No, I wanted to be consistent kind of with what we've got throughout the rest of the neighborhood. And then you think about when we have the bulb outs, there's a 18-inch curb and gutter. So when you're driving through those bulb outs, they go down to 22 feet, but really they go down to 19 feet. Because, when you design a roadway, the curb and gutter is not supposed to be a drivable surface. And if you've ever driven an old road where the curb and gutter is contained in that road section, it's not a comfortable place to drive. Driving on that curb and gutter kind of takes your tires and kind of pulls them in a different direction. So, at the bulb outs, they're at all those pedestrian crossings and intersections, they're 22 feet. And hence the drivable surface is about 19.
Okay. Next question. And just as a clarification, was there bike lanes that were going through here, or are you intending that the bikes will drive with the traffic, or not drive, but ride with the traffic?
The intention is that they ride with the traffic. So the rest of Baseline to the south they're all kind of residential streets where the bikes and the cars kind of commingle through there. And so that's the kind of the same intention through here.
Okay, next question is, you had mentioned that there's a difference in Center Street compared to the rest of Baseline with the parallel parking area. It's 8 feet here versus 6 feet here. And you had said that the reason for that was to make it more comfortable for those driving to parallel park. Is that what I heard correctly?
That's correct.
Okay. Is there a difference between people who are living in Baseline and their ability to parallel park than those that are going shopping at Baseline?
I think there is. I mean, we want Center Street to be a regional destination. We want people to come from all over Broomfield and Thornton and Westminster because we have such great shopping at Center Street, and the residential areas they're tight streets. If you got cars on both sides parked through there, they're tight streets to get through. So I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that slows people down and it gets people to think about how they're driving through there. I think for Center Street, I didn't want people to be turned off by not being able to drive through Center Street.
Okay. So then following up on that, if Center Street is meant to be this commercial activity centered around pedestrians and having kind of that extension of activity into kind of the streets, as you had said, why wouldn't we want people to have to think about driving slower when there's going to be a lot more people in a very concentrated area?
I think we still do that with the bulb outs, with the enhanced intersections, with the tabled intersections. There's no place you can drive through Center Street and pick up speed. You're going to always be running into some sort of kind of mechanism, kind of visual visual object that kind of slows you down and notifies you that this is a pedestrian focused area.
Uh-huh. Next question is for staff. In the applicant's presentation, he had mentioned that staff pushed back on the amount of kind of pedestrian crosswalks and bump outs and tabled roadways. Can you walk me through why, or any sort of study that has demonstrated that when you add too many of those, people stop caring? Because I'm inclined right now to believe they don't care to begin with.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, City Council, Matthew Devers, City and County Engineer. So during the review, part of the concern at that time was that the enhanced intersections were going to be Broomfield maintenance, which are difficult to maintain, expensive. So we were not in favor of them. And then having too many of them, I don't know of any study, but we can follow up with our traffic engineer and provide any additional information on that and work with the developer on it.
I mean, I think it's not concerning, but it's irritating to me as to why we don't have that information right offhand, and staff is making a recommendation to the applicant. I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Anderson?
Great, thank you. Can we go to slide 4 of the applicant's presentation? Because I want to better understand the intersection to the east of Center Street District. And maybe I think we might, I might not be understanding the same thing that others are seeing here, but so if you look at that intersection on Promenade Street at Colorado 7, that is a stoplight, correct? That is a stoplight. And then to the east of there, faint on the very, very edge, that's Huron Street, right? Current Huron Street?
Correct, yes.
Okay, because I think there's some discussion around, and Huron Street has to go away, that per CDOT, that existing, that Huron Street as exists on the east side is going away. That will be where I thought you mentioned that there will be like a blockade.
Well, with the yellow project, with the yellow infrastructure package, the signal goes away.
And then
then
the
the-
signal goes to Promenade Street,
Correct,
that
correct,
location.
yes.
Okay, so I think I am missing the concern over that signal that Councilmember Hinkle is expressing on the alignment of Huron Street. I think we need to better understand what we're, thank you.
Jim Nemchek here. I'm usually kind of the silent Bob sitting in the front row, so sorry about me jumping into this. But one thing I would highlight, and I'm the Vice President of Land Development. I've been associated with Baseline for about 19 years almost at this point, so I've got a big background on the background systems here. The 3/4 intersection at, moving to a 3/4 at the existing Huron intersection was CDOT's idea. I mean, we didn't come up with it. It was something that was presented to Broomfield Engineering. So it wasn't something that we were really a part of in our side. Whether or not this is approved tonight, it sounds like CDOT's going to move in that direction of taking that down to a 3/4 with or without that extra piece. I would highlight just to clarify that, we've looked at several different options of doing what we call the shoe fly of connecting Huron to Promenade Street. And quite frankly, given the timing of everything else that's happening and CDOT's initiative to move it to a 3/4 anyway, so it's still going to happen. We've really abandoned that piece. So we're not in a position tonight to say that we can commit to making that shoe fly happen. We would have to look back at our engineering pieces. So I just want to clarify that piece right now. But again, this was CDOT's idea as far as the 3/4. They've measured it for safety. Obviously, they're the ones making the recommendation and we're following the recommendation. I just want to be clear about that.
Okay, but that's a 3/4 to the existing Huron Street, which
Correct.
will go away when it's realigned.
Correct.
So that's a temporary condition, that 3/4 until that next development goes forward, hopefully in the next couple of years where Huron Street is actually realigned. Okay.
Yes, and I would highlight that the left turn motions, we're talking about Amazon trucks that might be heading north. They're going to learn the motion of going down 160th, which has been widened quite a bit by recent efforts we've done, as well as significant improvements that we've done to Sheridan Parkway to 4 lanes.
Okay, so the concern here is that interim condition. Okay, I see what I'm missing there. All right. Okay, thank you. And that's all my questions.
Thank you. Given the back and forth that's been going on here with this intersection, temporary nature of the Huron intersection, could staff please, I'd like staff to address what has been the nature of the conversation with CDOT and the developer, and what kind of iterations has it gone through, and how do you see this moving forward?
Thanks for the question, Matthew Deaver, City and County Engineer. So this goes back pretty far with conversations with CDOT and all developers really along this corridor. When the Palisade Parkway signal wanted to be put in, CDOT made a requirement of when that signal goes in, the Huron South signal needs to be removed within roughly 18 months. So we worked together with the development teams and CDOT to come up with a plan. The original plan that we've heard was to realign Huron to connect to Promenade. But they also said during that time, if that doesn't occur, at the very least, they want the signal removed and then either a right in, right out, or a 3/4 intersection installed. So for them and for Broomfield staff, we have reviewed the safety of it. We are still meeting, we meet with CDOT next week to finalize the design along with the Realberry team. So that's a little bit of the history of it.
And do you feel confident, having indicated that there's another meeting with CDOT next week, that what we've heard tonight is what is going to go forward, that CDOT won't change its mind or anything?
I'm confident that either a 3/4 or a right in, right out would be approved.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have any first round questions? Okay, second round. Councilmember Hinkle, 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. This seems like a complex problem that it seems like this issue we are not always privy to with CDOT, and I feel like we're missing CDOT here in this conversation. What led up to CDOT and you all in the negotiations with the 3/4 turn versus realigning? I'm assuming that both of those were on the table. Why was realigning taken off?
So the realigning itself is about a $25 million project in general. And per the managed growth and development agreement, it's triggered once development impacts it to the point where it needs traffic improvements. So we really just haven't triggered Huron to our extent. And so obviously a $25 million 4-lane realignment, we're trying to skinny it down a little bit to where it's a 2-lane, just like kind of how Sheridan was done with this Eastern Catalyst project that we've been talking about. It was just quite a bit of a drag into slate when it came to infrastructure costs on top of the, I think almost $70 million that is posed by the Center Street project. So it's a matter of timing, capital, bond funds, and targeting improvements to when those improvements are triggered in many ways.
Okay, so when can we see the realignment then? If we're just stuck in this, I do worry about safety at a 3/4 turn and people wanting to head west out of there, particularly our Amazon trucks as well that are going up Huron that we were told we're not going to go up Huron.
So I think in the presentation last Tuesday, our strategy has always been to move from west to east. And as we triggered in, anything else that really happens to the east is going to trigger the Huron relocation piece. So whether that's Parkside East, which is the residential development to the south, east of this location, or this Catalyst project, which really is not only going to finish off Huron Street's relocation, but the entirety of the Highway 7 corridor to its ultimate conditions. That's the Catalyst project that pulls that into play. And I think as Kyle had mentioned last Tuesday in their presentation, that's advancing much sooner than we had projected in our 10-year build out. So if you had asked me a year ago, it would probably be at least 3 to 4 years out. But I think we're looking at starting that project next year with this Catalyst piece.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Anderson.
All right, thank you. And I still want to, I really want to focus on, having Center Street start to move forward, and it's so close, and now I'm starting to see the concern here with the Amazon trucks. I'm just wondering, does Reelberry, since Amazon is part of the Reelberry property, correct? Is it part of, like, do you have any control over what Amazon does? And can Reelberry make a recommendation to Amazon to please not have their trucks go north on Huron during this interim phase? Do you have any control over that?
That was part of that Amazon submittal when we came to council. And I know that there was a lot of discussion about a traffic management plan or a traffic demand management plan. I have probably as much power as probably the city engineering group does as far as like restricting movements when it comes to those pieces. They did prescribe how they were going to be doing their movements. This whole realignment of the 3/4 and going down to a 3/4 is going to force some required changes from their traffic patterns anyway, because most of those trucks that are lining up are waiting for that left turn. Once it becomes a right in, right out, or a 3/4, you're not going to see stacking the way it's been stacked in that case, because you're going to be seeing people making free rights and having to keep moving. And Amazon's going to have to force their habits too, as well, from, like I said, turning down 160th and heading north up Sheridan, which does have the capacity to handle their trucks.
Yeah, and there are plenty of alternatives, so that is a helpful piece of information. Okay, that's all my questions. Thank you.
Do we have any other questions? There being no further questions, the public hearing is closed. Next is council consideration of proposed resolution number 2026-14. Will the clerk please read the proposed resolution by title?
7B, proposed resolution number 2026-14, approving North Park filing number 7, final plat and site development plan.
Is there a motion to approve the resolution? Councilmember Delgadillo.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Anderson.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Councilmember Ward.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Once again, I have concerns with some of the comments and responses you gave to questions that I had. And I also am a little uncomfortable with proceeding with approval when staff does not have the information as to why we are making a recommendation to you all for less raised crosswalk intersections. But also, I again don't think you've done enough for pedestrian safety in what is supposed to be a very pedestrian-oriented area. I know you made the comment about, curb and gutter is not a pleasant place to be driving. We all know that. Anyone who's ridden a bike knows that. However, it still increases kind of the field of vision and the perceived usable road space to drive. And anytime you make it perceived to be wider, people are going to increase speed. And while there are some curves in Center Street, there are a lot of straight throughs and straight sections of road that I think are concerning, especially given how people are driving these days. And as for the continuity issue, I don't buy it. We need to be prioritizing the safety of people and bicyclists. And I don't think you've done enough there. I think we need to be doing 10-foot roadway or 10-foot lanes, especially if you're going to be having bicyclists sharing the same space with 2 4-ton metal objects going down the road, and blind spots with people who are in a hurry to leave from a parallel parked space and are not going to see a smaller bike. So because of that, I'm going to be voting no again. And once again, I urge my colleagues that if we want to be seeing, if this is truly something that the Broomfield City Council wants to see going forward, is walkable, bikeable areas then we need to hold the developers' feet to the fire. I know we need the commercial property tax revenue to help with our budget, but we also need to be getting these projects right first and not having to go in after the fact and correct mistakes that we know we have made in previous plans for decades in the city and county of Broomfield and the US in general. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Hinkle.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. For the first time in probably a million years, I agree with Councilmember Ward. And I know he's very passionate about this, and this is a walkable, bikeable place, so I agree with his comments. The second thing is that while I understand the realignment might be outside of this map, it does feed into the safety up north, and you guys need to start listening to Children's Hospital, all of the developments up north. And particularly if the Amazon trucks are going to be going up north, they're taking a right, they might have to go west. And they're still going to go that way. Even though you guys have widened, is it 160th, correct? So I understand that, but at the same time, eventually it needs to be realigned. So in the future, I am not going to be apt to approve STPs if this is not done. And I would like to have CDOT here, or at least a statement from them eventually, and how those negotiations are happening. Because I truly believe that McWinney can afford the realignment, and that this is something that I know that you all need to sell property, but we also let you have Amazon. We also approved a lot of housing already. And so we need some good faith efforts from McWinney in order for anything in the future to be approved. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Anderson.
Thank you. And I appreciate you coming here tonight. And for the residents who moved into Baseline, we've seen so many residential developments, and it is time to see the commercial portions come together. And Center Street has been a long time in the making, and it's had its challenges, but we're at that point now where it's really coming together. And I hear some of these concerns, and yet the reality is this is not going to. We're still a very car-centric community. People are going to be driving their cars. There've been a lot of precautions put in place to help slow those vehicles down, and I think we just need to. It's never going to be perfect, because as you try to make it a very bikeable, walkable community, then you lose that aspect of people coming in. So it's going to have to be that coordination, and there are laws on the roads, and people need to follow them. And I think we're at a place now where this really does need to move forward. I also appreciate, building off of the study session last week. I had much greater concerns about the Huron Street realignment when we saw Shellmark West and Project Oak, and the movement is starting to come forward, and that will trigger the Huron Street realignment, is my understanding, that we're going to see that happen. So this Huron Street situation is I see that as very temporary. If all of those projects come forward in a couple of years, Huron Street, just the current Huron Street as it exists, that won't be an issue any longer. So I think it's time, and I will be voting yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, council, please cast your vote electronically. All council members have entered their vote. The results will now be displayed on the screen. That passes 5-3 with one abstention. That was supposed to be a recusal, wasn't it? Yeah. Yep. So that passes 5-3 with one recusal. Thank you very much. Let's take our 8 o'clock break. We'll have a 10-minute break. We'll reconvene at 8:10. Thank you very much. The next item under action items this evening are 3 resolutions related to the Department of Human Services 2026 grant funding. Council has a copy of the agenda memorandum, which I'll ask our staff to summarize.
Thank you. I believe Mandy Walk has the presentation for us this evening.
Hi, good evening. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and members of council. I'm Mandy Walk. I'm the Nonprofit and Community Engagement Manager for the Department of Human Services. You can go to the next slide, please. So we have these 3 resolutions before you today. The primary purpose of these resolutions is to approve the first amendments to the 2025 nonprofit grant agreements that you see on the screen. That's our largest tier, Tier 3, and that's A&I Avenues, Brimfield Fish, and Clinica Family Health and Wellness. These amendments are for the second year of funding within the multi-year base plus 3 years grants pilot, and they require council approval due to the size of the awards. Next slide, please. And this action is part of our nonprofit grant pilot that was approved by council in August of 2024, which aims to create stable baseline funding awards that address critical community needs and allow for a longer-term strategic investment in these core agencies from 2025 through 2028. So approving these resolutions will not only renew the contract amendments for 2026, but it would also authorize the city and county manager or the director of human services to sign for the 3rd and 4th years, subject to annual appropriations. Next slide, please. Furthermore, the 2026 process continues the partnership between our department and the Brimfield Community Foundation, as referenced in this slide. BCF administers and manages all Tier 1 and Tier 2 awards and reporting, while Tier 2 funding decisions remain a collaborative effort between the Brimfield Community Foundation and our department. We'll be joining you at a study session in March to review some of these details further, but we're happy to answer any questions you may have for the items before you today.
Thank you very much. We will now proceed with public comments. If any residents are using the call-in service, they should indicate their desire to speak by pressing *9 to raise their hand. We will start with in-person comments. If there is anyone who would like to be heard, please come to the podium and state your name and neighborhood for the record. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. There's no in-person comments. Do we have any comments on the phone? No. Okay. Council questions. Questions from council are next. Members should limit themselves to questions during this portion. The time to introduce amendments and state positions for or against this item is later. Are there any council questions? No, we don't see any council questions. So we have a series of resolutions here for the different awards. First is council's consideration of proposed resolution number 2026-10. Will the clerk please read the proposed resolution by title?
7C, resolution number 2026-10, approving the First Amendment to the agreement with A&I Avenues for nonprofit grant funding and delegating authority for future amendments.
Is there a motion to approve the resolution? Councilmember Ward.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Delgadillo.
Second.
Second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, council, please cast your vote electronically. All council members have entered their vote. The results will now be displayed on the screen. That passes 9-0. Thank you very much. Next is council's consideration of proposed resolution number 2026-11. Will the clerk please read the proposed resolution by title?
7C, resolution number 2026-11, approving the First Amendment to the agreement with Broomfield Fish for nonprofit grant funding and delegating authority for future amendments.
Is there a motion to approve the resolution? Councilmember Anderson,
So moved.
is there a second? Councilmember Hinkle.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, council, please cast your vote electronically. The results will now be displayed on the screen, and that passes 9-0. Next is council's consideration of proposed resolution number 2026-12. Will the clerk please read the proposed resolution by title?
7C, Resolution Number 2026-12, approving the First Amendment to the Agreement with Clinica Family Health and Wellness for nonprofit grant funding and delegating authority for future amendments.
Is there a motion to approve the resolution? Councilmember Ward.
So moved.
Is there a second? Councilmember Twist.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, council, please, Councilmember Twist.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you. I just wanted to say that I last fall had the opportunity to serve on one of the subcommittees that reviewed grants, the Tier 1 grants. And I was so impressed with the number of people, the wide range of community involvement people brought into the process, and the care and the just detailed applications and information that went into making these really tough decisions about how to spend very limited funds when there are much greater needs. I often say how lucky we are to live here in Broomfield, where we have such great coordination between our nonprofits and our city partners, but it is not luck. It takes a lot of hard work and a lot of people. And I just want to say how deeply I appreciate the process and the commitment from so many partners to making sure that this money truly impacts the lives of Broomfield residents. So thank you. I will be wholeheartedly supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion? Thank you. Council, please cast your vote electronically. All council members have entered their vote. The results will be displayed on the screen. That passes 9-0. Next, under action items, is council's consideration on first reading of a proposed ordinance related to a building code update. Council has a copy of the agenda memorandum, which I'll ask our staff to summarize.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, and stepping up is the almighty Tim. Tim Pate. He is our chief building official, and he's going to walk us through this item and also make note that the substantial changes have already been completed. So he's going to highlight that as he walks through the rest of this. Mr. Pate, you're up.
Thank you, Manager Hoffman. Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members. Tonight, I will be presenting the proposed adoption of the 2024 International Building Codes and amending sections of Broomfield Municipal Code Title 15 with the ordinance number 2295. Would just like to point out Steve Goslin with the North Metro Fire District is here in case there are any questions. And I would also like to point out he was just recently became the Fire Marshals Association of Colorado new president. Steve, thank you. Next slide, please. The Broomfield Charter authorizes the city and county to adopt standard codes such as the International Code Council series for buildings. Adoption of the 2024 International Code Package will allow Broomfield to keep pace with changes in construction materials and techniques and changes in overall life and fire safety requirements. The new codes will apply to new construction, additions, and alterations. Existing structures are not required to be upgraded to the new standards, except in the locations where the alterations are taking place with a building permit. Next slide, please. Since 1961, Broomfield has adopted nationally recognized building codes. In order to keep pace with changes in construction materials and techniques, Updated editions of the codes have been adopted as they became available. Broomfield's current building codes are the 2021 editions of the international codes. The 2024 editions, which are listed on the webs or the page there, are now the most recent and are in the process of being adopted by numerous jurisdictions in the metro area and nationwide. Next slide, please. The 2024 code package will include the new Colorado Low Energy and Carbon Code. As previously pointed out in 2 or 3 different study sessions, the Colorado Energy Office was charged with developing a low energy and carbon code as per state legislation, House Bill 22-1362. The State Energy Code Group that was put together by the Colorado Energy Office had 21 members. I was fortunate to be one of those members. Began meeting on March 5th, 2024, and had 22 total meetings discussing proposed amendments to the 2024 International Energy Conservation Code, along with the previously adopted Electric Ready and Solar Ready Code. We have already adopted the Electric Ready and Solar Ready Code, and that code is now inserted into the Low Energy and Carbon Code. So there will not be 2 separate state energy codes. As I just mentioned, we've already adopted the Electric and Solar Ready Code. The State Low Energy and Carbon Code added numerous amendments to make the base 2024 International Energy Conservation Code, the IECC, more restrictive and provide more efficient structures. The new energy code can be classified as an electric preferred energy code. Staff and the ACES committee are proposing 5 additional strengthening amendments to the new energy code, which are included in the council memo. Starting after July 1st, as per the House bill, July 1st, 2026, local jurisdictions that update their building codes must adopt an energy code that achieves equivalent or better energy and carbon emissions performance than the IECC developed by the CEO and the Energy Code Board. The DOE, Department of Energy, estimates that the base 2024 IECC is about 7% more efficient than the currently adopted 2021. We have not received any data yet from the Colorado Energy Office on how much more efficient that the new LECC is, but I am confident that it will provide more efficiency. The CEO has no cost data yet for complying. They hope to have that later this year. Due to their funding issues, they haven't been able to do that. The NAHB, National Association of Home Builders, has shown costs to move from the 2021 IEC to the LECC to be roughly break even. Staff analysis is that it will cost more to comply with the LECC if using a mixed fuel design, continuing to use the natural gas and electric, since you need to provide more efficiency measures than if doing all electric. We'll point out, interesting, with the LECC, will require more efficiency standards for larger homes. So a home that's 5,000 to 7,500 square feet will need to provide 100% more efficiency credits than a house that's less than 5,000 square feet. Houses that are 7,500 square feet or larger will need to be what they call net zero, a high performance home that produces as much renewable energy on site as it consumes over a year. Next slide, please. If adopted on first and second reading, ordinance number 2295 would be effective for all permits issued as of April 15th, 2026. Thank you, and that concludes my presentation. And I'm here for any questions.
Thank you. We will now proceed with public comments. If any residents are using the call-in service, they should indicate their desire to speak by pressing *9 to raise their hands. We will start with in-person comments. If there's anyone who would like to be heard, please come to the podium and state your name and neighborhood for the record. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Hello, my name is Elizabeth, and I'm the chair of the Advisory Committee for Environmental Sustainability for the City and County of Broomfield. So hello, Mayor and Mayor Pro Tem and council members. And I'm just here to affirm that ACES had the chance to review these codes and speak with Tim and ask questions. We do recommend with a vote of 10-0 to approve the state low energy and carbon code with the 5 additional amendments as recommended by staff. And this does support a previous resolution 2020-169, which adopted greenhouse gas reduction as a guiding principle. And we do believe this will improve efficiency and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mays. Next is public comment from individuals joining via phone. Please press star 9 to indicate your desire to provide public comment. Once called to speak, please state your first and last name and neighborhood for the record. We have no comments via phone. Questions from council are next. Members should limit themselves to questions during this portion. The time to introduce amendments and state positions for or against this item is later. Are there any questions? Councilmember Ward.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you for the presentation, Mr. Pate. My, I guess, first question, and we'll see where it goes from there, is as it relates to the building code, have we preemptively adopted kind of the single staircase requirement that the state legislature passed in HB 25-1273 last legislative session?
We have not. That is going to be in the 2027 IBC. And so we have not brought that into our code yet.
Okay, but we're going to be adopting it in I guess would that be in 2028 when council sees that?
That would be correct. Yes.
Okay. I think that really was my only question, so I appreciate the response and the clarification.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Not seeing any questions. The next is council's consideration of proposed ordinance number 2295. Will the clerk please read the proposed ordinance by title?
7D, ordinance number 2295, amending certain sections of the Broomfield Municipal Code and adopting the 2024 International Building Code and related codes for primary codes by reference with an effective date of April 15th, 2026.
Is there a motion to approve the ordinance on first reading and order published in full? Councilmember Brown.
I motion.
So moved.
So moved.
Is there a second? Councilmember Anderson.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? I'd just like to thank ACES for their review of the building code, and certainly the building department for their work on this. I would like to say, as was stated, that this is an electric preferred energy code. And certainly we recognized, at least I do, and some of us do, that we would like to be moving someday towards possibly the electric only energy code. So if towards that movement, we have some federal grants that are coming through DRCOG to help train workers in the process of installing and advising on electric heat pumps and electric water systems. And so that will certainly advance things in this arena. So certainly if residents are doing new builds, we hope that they would consider that movement going forward and consider those electric only options. Seeing anyone else, seeing no further discussion, we will move forward to the vote on ordinance number 2295. Council, please cast your vote electronically. All council members have entered their vote. The results will now be displayed on the screen. That passes 9-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The final item under action items is council's consideration on first reading of a proposed ordinance related to water use and drought restrictions. Council has a copy of the agenda memorandum, which I'll ask our staff to summarize.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, and making his way down. We're going to be seeing a lot of this gentleman. We are grateful for Mark Laurie. He's our Deputy Director of Utilities, and he's going to walk us through drought and what that means and what we can expect next. Mr. Laurie.
Thank you, City Manager Hoffman, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council, Mark Laurie, Deputy Director of Water Utilities. I'm just going to give you a quick overview of, we implemented new irrigation rules, new water use rules this past year that were passed by council last year, or in 2024, excuse me. I'll give you a little review of our public outreach and implementation around those rules this past summer. Some of the impacts that we saw, somewhat surprising on water use this year. And then based on feedback we got from a number of folks in the community, we are proposing a number of changes tonight that I wanted to review as well. Next slide, please. So the section of code was updated or amended by council in June 2024. This established new requirements for turf irrigation in times that are not drought. So we did have a bunch of updates that apply to when council declares drought condition 1, 2, or 3. But what I'm here to talk about tonight is some of the requirements for when we're in normal conditions or non-drought. So the new requirements that were added this year include, we require property owners to irrigate turf no more than 3 times per week. We assigned odd and even addresses to specific days of the week. We require irrigation to be only between the hours of 6 p.m. and 10 a.m. So that's to reduce evaporation. If you're evaporating during the heat of the day, a lot of it's just going up into the air as vapor. For the reuse system, we limited the irrigation season so that it would be, so that couldn't irrigate before April 1st or after November 30th. This is mostly about sort of system optimization and filling Great Western Reservoir and making sure we have enough water for the summer. The code does allow trees, shrubs, and gardens to be watered anytime by hand or drip systems, bubbler systems, or soaker hoses. So we don't want to limit people's ability to water water-wise plants, trees that we want to maintain so they can water those anytime during the day. Using drip systems is not as much evaporation because you're not spraying into the air. So using those kinds of systems to water trees and shrubs is fine during the day. And then the code includes a sort of cascading system of fines for violations. So the first 2 violations, we send warnings and educational materials, and then fines start with the 3rd violation in any given calendar year for a property or an account. And they escalate up to 1,000 for repeat violations. Okay, next slide, please. So in 2025, we did a bunch of things to get the word out and do some enforcement around these new requirements. So we worked with our communications staff to develop a bunch of strategies to get communications out around these things. I'm going to sample a few here. We had a new webpage, broomfield.org/water use and drought restrictions, which summarizes all the new requirements and has links to the specific ordinance, has links to our drought response plan and a few other things. We did a bill insert in May 2025, which is shown here on the slide, and was this graphic was included in the memo that you all reviewed. Again, just a quick summary of some of the key requirements so people knew exactly what was required, especially the 3 days a week and not watering between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. And then we disseminated key messages about these requirements via social media throughout the spring and throughout the summer. So we were really trying to get the word out. We also did some articles and some publications. I think there were some advertisements and bus stations and things like that. We did a number of things to try to get word out about these requirements throughout the spring and summer. Next slide, please. In addition, we developed a new procedure for enforcing the requirements. So a couple things we did. We developed an online reporting tool that's linked on our website where residents or business owners could report suspected violations of the code. We developed a tracking system where we would, essentially a spreadsheet, but also procedures for deciding when we would need to go out on site and investigate whether there was actually a violation of the code. If we were able to determine with an on-site visit that there was a violation, then we would send a notice of violation to the address on record for that account. If a staff person was not able to visually verify that a violation occurred, then we would just send educational materials, a postcard similar to the bill insert. Actually, it's shown here on the screen. We would send a postcard that would similarly just give them a summary of some of the requirements so that hopefully we're getting word out to that address. That's everything here. Next slide, please. So forgive me, it seems like I can never give a presentation without showing at least one graph. So we were surprised to see, we actually saw higher water use in the winter of 2025 than previous years, very, 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 very slightly, but that was surprising. So we were tracking it even closer because of that. And as spring and summer set in, we were pretty quickly starting to see lower water use during the irrigation season. So in 2025, water use overall was 11% lower than 2024, despite the fact that it was a similarly dry year. Rainfall was about the same. And 2025 water use was 4% lower than the average over the previous 5 years. So if we compare it to a longer term trend rather than just 1 year, we still saw a reduction. So the chart shows the blue bars are water use, total water use for the entire year, and the orange dots are rainfall that year. And so you can see 2025 was among the driest years in terms of total rainfall over the last that 6-year period, but it did have that reduction. So we certainly suspect that the new water use rules had an effect and led to lower water use. I got a lot of phone calls, a lot of emails from residents and businesses asking for clarification, asking, can I do this? Can I do that? How does this work? How does that work? I think there was a lot of motivation to comply with the new rules and be as efficient as they could. But of course, at the same time, we had rate increases and higher rates do also incentivize people to use less water. So it's hard to tease out which of those two things really caused the reduction. So we'll need at least a couple more years of data to really start to try to tease that out. Next slide, please. Okay, so based on feedback that we got from pretty much across the board, working with our colleagues in parks, residents, HOAs, and others, we're proposing 6 changes that I'm summarizing here. I'll go through them quickly. One, we want to establish separate requirements for large parcels during non-drought conditions. So we did hear from a number of owners of large parcels that it's very hard for them to run all of their zones in the time from 6 p.m. to 10 a.m. the next morning, just based on the design of their irrigation system or whatnot. So we don't just want to give them a blanket exception. So we're going to create some procedures where they can verify to us that they are using as efficient practices as possible. We will require them to have a system audit within the last 5 years and other things like that to make sure that they can do what they need to do to irrigate their land and maintain their landscaping while still being as efficient as possible with the water. We're going to start to require, so some of the violations that we saw were caused by damage to irrigation systems. So we would just have leaks that were occurring, water running off onto sidewalks. We didn't really have a rule about how long people had to repair those. So we're proposing a rule that would require repair of those damaged systems within 10 days. We're proposing to create a new exception for new seed or sod or reseeded areas. So we have these exceptions under drought condition 1. We feel like it was an oversight on our part to include that in the non-drought rules. So now there will be an exception where when you plant new seed or sod, you need to water it pretty much every day for about 3 weeks. And so this will allow that exception where they can water throughout the day, every day for 3 weeks. We got a comment that we didn't clarify so that everybody's aware that to get that exception for new seed or sod, it will require that a property owner register with the Department of Water Utilities. And we'll set up a procedure for residents and property owners to be able to do that. So we just need to know where the exceptions apply. So we need them to let us know through a registration process. We're changing the irrigation season for reuse, mostly feedback from parks that during warm stretches in early spring, late winter, their athletic fields are used in March and they need to be able to irrigate. So we're extending that season so they can do that in March. Clarifying that the Department of Water Utilities is now the point of contact. And then finally adding an exception for winter watering so that residents and businesses can irrigate during prolonged dry spells, such as we're experiencing now. This is actually a recent comment that we got from some residents. I normally wouldn't recommend that anybody fire up their sprinkler system in the winter because it is likely to freeze overnight if you don't adequately blow it out again. But if people want to do that, it is an easier way than going out and watering your lawn by hand if you want to get some water on it during the winter. So Water use in the winter through sprinkler systems is going to be minimal, so we're adding an exception for that. And if passed by council, we're proposing that these changes be effective 7 days after publication following final passage. So that way the changes will be effective as we get into the 2026 irrigation season. Next slide. Okay, that's all I have. So proposed ordinance number 2294 amends that section of code. And if approved on first reading, then this will be published in full in a public hearing and second and final reading scheduled for March 10th. That's all I have. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. We will now proceed with public comments. If any residents are using the call-in service, they should indicate their desire to speak by pressing *9 to raise their hand. We will start with in-person comments. If there's anyone who would like to be heard, please come to the podium and state your name and neighborhood for the record. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Seeing none, we also do not have any phone-in public comments. Questions from council are next. Members should limit themselves to questions during this portion. The time to introduce amendments and state positions for or against this item is later. Are there any questions? Yes, there are. Councilmember Cohen.
Thank you, Mayor Tem. Thank you for the presentation. Just had a couple questions for clarification. Can you discuss the large acreage criteria? I think it was 100,000 square feet. How is that determined? And Ward 5, as you know, has a lot of large acreage lots. So does that affect Wilcox for the average Wilcox lot, and how does that affect HOAs?
So yeah, the definition of a large property, I believe, is 100,000 square feet, or I think that was 2.3 acres. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it is in the proposed ordinance. I don't have numbers in front of me or at my fingertips about how many residential parcels that would affect. I know there are some, forgetting the name of the development, we have gotten feedback from a few up north, I believe in your ward, that they do have trouble running their sprinkler systems from 6 p.m. to 10 a.m. So it would apply to any property. It's not just HOAs, it's not just businesses, it's not just athletic fields, it's any property that's over that amount of irrigated turf, it would apply to them.
So I mean, 2.3, what is there are a lot of 1 acre, I think there's some 5 acre lots, but what's the magic with the 2.3 or the 100? I mean, and how are they determining that you have 100,000 square feet of irrigated property? Is that what the determination is, or your total lot size?
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for that question. So I think the way we would do it, there isn't going to be a perfectly precise way. We would know the size of the parcel from our parcel data. You can do pretty precise measurements in Google Earth by simply just looking at the imagery and drawing around and figuring out what the area is. If we felt that a person who was asking for this exception was clearly not near that threshold, then we obviously wouldn't allow the exception, recognizing that we're not going to go out and survey a private piece of property. If they were close or clearly over, then we would grant the exception. I don't think there's a magic number about that. I'll be honest, it was fairly arbitrary. 100,000 is larger than most plots. We talked to Parks. They did say that it depends on the design of the irrigation system. There isn't really a magic cutoff, but if you're above about 100,000, you might have trouble doing it in that time. It just really depends on the.
So the 100,000 is the irrigated portion, not your total parcel, perhaps.
I believe that's what we said in the language. Let me double check.
I just know you're going to get questions from people in Wilcox of whether they qualify or not, and how would they determine that?
Yeah, it does say of irrigated turf. We can put I think what we can do is look into putting some information in our communications and on the website that we can assist residents if they don't know. I mean, I don't think I would know how much grass I have in my yard, so we can help them using just some simple desktop tools to help measure what area they have.
The assumption is 100,000 is what would take longer than the allotted period. That's the calculation.
Yes.
Yeah. And I know there's a lot of HOAs because we hear, I know Councilmember Henkel and I hear from them who have, they were designed at a different time and they have lots of green areas. I don't know if they're 100,000 square feet, but would they qualify as well?
They would. So the way we would apply this is typically by account, by billing account. So if a billing account has more than 100,000 acre feet, then this exception would apply.
Okay.
I think most HOAs would qualify for that.
Okay. Question about your exceptions for sod and seed, and the question came up is, does that include xeriscaping? So if you're installing, and some are still irrigating the sprinklers, most are doing the drip, but they might be doing, if they have bushes. Does that also get the exception? It's not necessarily sod or seed, but it's new plants.
So new plants like a water-wise garden or a garden in a box.
If I take out my front yard and I put in plants and rock and trees, and I need to water that to establish the roots,
Yep.
am I
So-
part of that exception?
Yeah, and actually that exception wouldn't apply simply because the code says trees, shrubs, gardens can be watered anytime by hand, by sprinkler,
Okay.
by drip lines, soaker hoses. So unless you're watering it with overhead spray nozzles, probably wouldn't be a concern. And I don't think anybody's irrigating those kinds of landscapes with overhead spray nozzles.
I see some because they have bushes, they have tall. So they aren't necessary, but yeah, the idea is if you rely on drip, then doesn't matter, right?
Yep, then you can water it anytime.
Okay. And last question, I wanted, like the last time we talked, I think we talked about going from 3 days to 2 days. And what you were looking for was a 5 to 10% reduction, if I remember correct, in the amount of usage, if the drought rules go into effect. That's correct, right?
I think that would be off of the annual total. So in summer, so in a typical peak day in summer, if we went from 3 to 2, I would expect to see more than that. It's hard to say, but if everybody complied, I think technically it would probably be 25% or something
Right.
like that. Whether we could get there, I'm not sure, but yeah, I would expect.
Summer reduction you're looking for is a 25 to 30%
Yeah.
to meet okay. And as we also talked about how just last year we saw like 11% reduction in use, just through maybe it was the increased fees, maybe it was the temperature, maybe it was compliance. If we have that type of natural reduction, does that help us avoid any mandated conservation restrictions? Or does it really just depend on this per season?
So I think that's an interesting question. We do some calculations to support decisions about declaring a drought. And part of it is that we do both sides of the equation, the supply and the demand. I mentioned that we feel like we need a few more years of data to feel like this is something that is well established in a long-term trend. And once we feel like it's established as a long-term trend, we probably would build it into our demand forecasts and these kinds of calculations. I think for now it would not be prudent to do that because we don't know if it's a permanent trend. So we would want to be cautious and assume that water use is more like the last 5 or 10 years average. So I don't think we would factor that in yet. I think it would help us. It helps us in the long term because less water use keeps a little bit more water in storage throughout the system and should help us have a little bit more supply. So it'll help a little bit on that side of the equation.
Okay, so if the messaging is the more we conserve, the more we might reduce restrictions, maybe down the road, that might be a message.
Yep.
Okay.
And that is a message that we do include in all of our communications that, well, it's a little hard to sort of pinpoint that, yeah, conservation definitely helps us down the road.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilmember Ward.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. My first question goes to the third proposed change about the exceptions for new seed, sod, and reseeded areas for non-drought times, specifically the requirement for registering with the Department of Water. When we approved the budget for this current fiscal year, did we include enough funds to appropriately deal with the staffing levels needed for that? Because I know in previous discussions we've had about other agenda items like the RV ordinance, for example, setting up a registration requirement is burdensome for staff and Canton. So that's one consideration council should take in.
Thank you, Councilmember Ward. That's another interesting question. So we didn't specifically budget a line item this year for the enforcement and communications efforts that we put in. And we did create, I showed some of the things earlier. We created a new form, a new tracking system. We had staff out in the field investigating. I think basically we just absorbed that into our staff team. It does mean to some degree there are other things we're pushing to later because we wanted to implement that, but it was a priority this year. So I think the same thing would happen this coming year for registering for new seed and sod. It's not a wildly common thing. Like I don't think a third of the residents in the city are going to be installing new seed and sod. God help me if a third of the residents are installing new seed and sod in any given summer. I think it would be a handful. So it's something that developing the procedure, probably setting up a new email or maybe a form online is how we would approach it. That would be relatively light work. We do some testing around that. And then it's basically just building that into the tracking system that we already have so we know where the exceptions apply. So I don't think it would be a concern.
Okay, thank you. Next question is for proposal item number 6, the exception for winter watering during prolonged drought spells or dry spells, sorry. Is there a concern, or I guess let me start with this. If someone starts watering during the winter and the lines freeze, there's a potential for damaged, cracked lines, broken sprinkler heads, etc., that can cause just leaking later on down during the normal irrigation season, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then to kind of go along with that, in order to properly air out the water system, you have to, or blow out the sprinkler systems, you have to get a generally specialized equipment that can force air through the entire water lines. Are we confident that there are enough businesses and or rental equipment available during the winter that can handle that request from residents, knowing that this is generally not a normal time period for that equipment to be used?
I mean, I can't say for sure. I mean, those landscape companies, I think typically a lot of those landscape companies shift in the summer. In the winter, they're often doing snow removal services and other things like that. I am assuming, and I would assume, that they maintain their equipment. They still have their equipment, their air compressors and whatnot. So I can't guarantee that there would be enough of that available for homeowners who would elect to do this. I will say that my suspicion is that most homeowners who would want to do this have their own compressor and would do it themselves. That's not uncommon. I didn't ask the gentleman who called me if that's what his plan was, but that would be my suspicion. The other thing that I think we would do, that your comment makes me think, is we would probably want to put some stuff on our website and our communications about, if you do decide to fire up your sprinkler again in the winter, please make sure you blow it out. Maybe, I don't know that we would want to link to any specific vendors, but we would want to let them know that you need to get someone to blow it out if you can't blow it out yourself, and it's something you need to consider before you do it.
And I guess one of my other kind of concerns is you can have days where it gets like 40s and it's going to get up to the 50s by the end of the week, and then drop drastically the following day. And that won't necessarily allow enough time for a full blowout, especially if you have to kind of schedule that. And those fluctuations can be rather rapid. So I just have a concern about that proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Councilmember Twist.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, and thank you, Mr. Laurie, for the presentation. My first question is related to Councilmember Ward's question about the registry. Is this something that is entirely new, or is this like, do you have a registry for anything else? Because it's not just the seed and sod, it was also listed under the large property that you have to register with the Department of Water Utilities. Do you maintain any other kind of water-related registries in the department?
Thank you, Councilmember Twist. Not aware of any. Are you aware? I'm looking back at Director Rudd or Jeff Ruger. No, I'm not aware of any registries that we have like that. The closest thing really is our tracking system that I know of and that I'm involved with, is the tracking system for violations at specific addresses. So I'm not aware of another registry that we have.
Okay.
There is.
Ken Rudd, Director of Water Utilities. Thanks for the question. The only one that we currently have is on the reuse system. We do have all the registries for every reuse system that's under a permit. They're also under permit with the state of Colorado. And so we do track all the reuse facilities.
Okay. A follow-up to that, I'm curious about what is the registry, just a registry where people call you up and say, hey, I'm doing this thing? Is there an approval process? Do you, I assume with the large property, the size of your property is likely not going to change, so that would be a more permanent registry. But with the new seed and sod, the time limits, do you check that? Do you enforce it? Do you approve it? Do you, I mean, how do you foresee this working? It feels like a lot of logistics around that.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think we've put some thought into this. We haven't fully developed it yet, but a couple of the things that we're going to do. So I think I mentioned it's either going to be an email address, or maybe we'll use one of our standing email addresses that we use for some of these communications. So it's a shared email address that will go to multiple staff. Or it'll be an online form, not unlike the one where residents can report suspected violations and people can submit their address that way. We have a tracking sheet. I keep coming back to this. But should be relatively simple in this regard. Each row each record in the sheet is a suspected violation with the address, the account number, where we heard about it, whether we went out and investigated it. And so we would have similarly in that tracking sheet, all of the exceptions for addresses and account numbers for new seed and sod. So we would just ask either via email or a form that you give us your address, the dates that you're installing your new sod so that we know when the 3 weeks is up, your account number. If you know it, we can get the account number just with a name and an address. And I think that would be enough information for us to then track. We have talked about, I don't know that we'll do this, but other cities do signs. So they'll give the resident a sign, put the sign in their front yard so that other residents know I'm not violating anything. I've got an exception for new seed or sod. We really haven't investigated the cost and logistics of that, but it's something we'd consider. Again, I don't think I would expect something on the order of dozens of these. I think we can handle dozens of signs. If it's thousands, I'll regret saying that. So, but I do think it'll be fewer.
Thank you. My second question is, I see in the memo that in 2023 with the initial drought restrictions, you ran all of that past the ACES board. I'm wondering if these items that are before us tonight, if those have been through any of the board and commissions process for review, either ACES or Flow?
Yeah, thank you. They were presented to Flow last month. Yeah, we presented these changes to Flow last month so that they got to review and comment on some of these changes and what they would mean.
Okay. What was that feedback? It's not included in the memo.
Out of support. The chairman of our Flow committee is here. Do you want to?
All right.
Yeah, basically, when we reviewed it, and he can confirm, our chair, but basically the Flow committee supported the recommendation.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilmember Anderson.
I have a question about the winter watering, because I thought I heard you say that it was when we get to that November to March timeframe that allows time for water reservoirs to refill. And that's important to have that period of time where we're not watering, but then we're adding in a option that you can basically water anytime you want to, because you're trying to allow residents to water when it's dry, but it doesn't specifically state that. It just says you can, like, the day and time restrictions are removed. So essentially you wouldn't have to stop watering on November. You could continue to water, minus the freezing part, you could actually continue to water all year. So it feels like there should be like a guardrail in there that this is only for a certain condition.
Yeah. And I'll double check that the language is, we did double check this, and I'll double check again that the language on this is tight, but the November 30th to now proposed March 1st is only for irrigation on the reuse system, and the exception for new seed to sod will only apply to areas irrigated by potable water. So 2 separate water systems.
Oh, that was only for reuse.
The seasonal limitation, yep, is only for reuse.
Okay, I missed that part. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Are there any other council questions? I had one. I share the concerns expressed about the registry with the new seed and sod. I was asked that question prior to the meeting. If we don't have a communications plan to adequately, and the staff to adequately roll this out, I mean, I think it's unrealistic to think that residents who are just, changing some of the sod in their yard are going to realize they have to register. Is there any guideline as to you need to, if you're changing, resodding the whole lawn or a little area or anything like that? I didn't see any dimensions in there.
That's true. We didn't include any dimension limits. And I think the main reason we didn't do that is that no matter how small an area you're reseeding or sodding, you're going to have to water it every day and multiple times a day. So we wanted to know that an exception applies to any place, no matter how small the seed or sod area is. We will develop a communications plan around this. Obviously, it's not going to get to every single resident. We face those challenges with everything we communicate, but we'll do some stuff on our web. We'll do some social media stuff. We'll do bill insert. We'll probably do some sort of bill insert this spring around these watering rules. And I would be surprised if we didn't fit a bullet in there somehow about new seed and sod exception. It'll be on our website. So we will try very hard to get the word out. And we do get, even last year, we would get questions every now and then, probably this, which is why this change is in here, where residents would call and say, hey, what about, do you know I need to water new seed or sod every day? And so I think people that are aware of the rules are aware that new seed and sod would violate it, and they reach out to us or they go looking for these information.
Okay. So you anticipate a somewhat slow rollout of enforcement at first? Is that what you're saying?
I anticipate communications this spring to get the word out that this exception is there among our other rules. So I think the enforcement would begin as soon as the code is in place. Yes, I think but we would try to get the word out so that people were aware of it.
Okay. But there is a warning system? Is that a warning stage? Is that correct?
Councilman or Mayor Pro Tem Lim, you are correct. There is a step program that we have established that the first 2 times is a warning before we would get into any enforcement action. Part of to finalize the communication plan is that we wanted to allocate our staff resources. So once we got approval from council, that's when we would formalize the communication plan. We have an outline of what that would look like, but all the details weren't going to be finalized until we know that council was going to approve this, and then we would finalize that communication plan.
Okay, thank you. We have other questions. Council Member Brown, first round.
I think Councilmember Cohen was before me, but I'll jump the line here.
He's second.
So thank you, Mr. Laurie, for the presentation. I had a question as we're digging into, enforcement. In terms of and going back to Councilmember Twiss's earlier comment about how people are going to know that the form exists, and if they fill out the form, then, what happens? When is the right point in the process to fill out the form? I wanted to recap what I'm hearing to make sure that if our residents reach out, that it's pretty clear. And I appreciate that the communications plan will be forthcoming. So if I didn't know about this process at all and I installed sod in my yard and then I got a violation in the mail, all I have to do is go fill out the form and I'm done? Is that what you're saying?
That's an interesting point. So thank you for that. I think what we could do is, my anticipation is that I would like to get these communications from residents, whether it's via email or a form, before they do the seed and sod. But I think, I don't see why we couldn't have a process where we didn't know that they were doing new seed and sod. They were reported. We went out and found that they were violating. We would see when we go out, because we have to visually verify before we send them a notice of violation. We would see that they're violating because they have new seed and sod. Maybe we'll develop either a postcard that's specific to that exception or an email outreach or something like that that says, we got a report that you were violating our code about irrigation. We see that you installed new seed and sod. Did you know about this registration process? You're not going to get a notice of violation, something like that after the fact. I think that would work quite well as well. I hadn't thought about that before, but I think that would work.
Okay, thank you for addressing that. And to clarify as well, if I guess, have you thought about any conditions under which you would receive the form and reject it? And say no, or you're not anticipating that would happen?
I don't think so. I don't think, I try to trust our residents. So if they, if they're applying for a new seed or sod, I don't even think we're going to go out and visually verify. They're going to have 3 weeks of an exception. So if someone reports that, address ABC is violating, we'll look on our sheet, say, oh, they have 3 weeks to water their lawn every day. And so, no, I can't imagine that there'd be anything unless, I can't think of anything. I was going to say, unless they did it 3 weeks before, but you could do multiple parts of your yard successive times in the season. So I can't think of anything.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else for their round 1 questions? Okay, round 2, Councilmember Cohen.
Thank you, Mayor Tim. I just forgot one question from the first round. I was curious about your enforcement outcome. You had about 25% of all complaints ended up in a notice of violation. So I don't know if that is people not understanding what the violation might be. Are there any concerns of harassment? People get pretty serious about their lawn watering in the neighborhood, or is that typical that it would be about a 25% rate?
If I understand your question, Councilmember Cohen, the 25% rate was because we only verified 25% of them as being violations, and we sent those notices out for 25% of them. The other ones only received a postcard either because we couldn't verify it, or we went out and said, no, that's not a violation for whatever reason.
25% were verified and that you could determine their violation?
Correct.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Twist.
Thank you. Just a couple of clarification points. This is only during non-drought times, right? If it's drought level 1, 2, or 3, we have different guidance, right?
Correct. Yeah, we're not changing the guidance for drought times.
Okay. So if we are not on drought restrictions, it's the second week of July. It is predicted to be over 95 degrees for 4 weeks in a row. Someone decides to plant. The city is okay with extra watering during that time? Are there guidelines around that? Are there, I mean, if there's not an approval process for this extra watering, then we're just okay with everyone watering whenever, as long as it's 3 weeks at a time, even if it is the worst possible time, if we're not technically in a drought.
We do have some guidelines and on our website about irrigation. I don't remember if there's anything on there about it's not real smart to do new seed or sod during the worst of the heat of summer, but I think that I would take that suggestion. Maybe that's something we would add. I guess we're trying to balance conserving water, trying to promote water-wise irrigation practices without being overly restrictive. I don't know if we found that balance point, but it's a balance point we're always trying to find. So if I found out about a resident wanting to do that, I would say it's not the best time. It's going to be really hard to establish that new seed or sod when it's this hot and this dry, no matter how much you water, but a resident can do what they want.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you. All right, questions are completed. Next is council's consideration of proposed ordinance number 2294. Will the clerk please read the proposed ordinance by title?
7E number 2294, amending certain sections of chapter 13-36 of the Broomfield Municipal Code, water use and drought restrictions.
Is there a motion to approve the ordinance on first reading and order published in full? Councilmember Hinkle?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Brown?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing no further discussion, we will move forward to the vote on ordinance number 2294. Council, please cast your vote electronically. All members have entered their vote. The results will now be displayed on the screen. That passes 9-0. Thank you. There are no mayor or council member requests for future action this evening. Is there any other business to come before the council from my council colleagues or staff? Seeing none, the business meeting is adjourned.